yeah, basically there is, I would say, that requirement to have that alignment with the employers, and it depends on the attitude of both parties as to whether it can be achieved. Certainly what I know from our university and our program down in Plymouth, we've got good employer involvement in terms of placements, in terms of other opportunities. They come in, they facilitate sessions for students, and we've got good relations with our student alumni who then come back and share their employment experiences with the next generation of students. And the Secure Southwest event that I mentioned, that's something where we get external speakers and the industry coming in, the students participate in that, and so it's a means of getting them together, getting them into that mindset of, well, this is what the industry and the profession needs, and equally the industry and the profession and other people from companies in the region can get together with the students and see what they can offer. So yeah, absolutely, it's linking the two up. Anything else? Yes? Mm-hmm. Well, I think two aspects. One aspect would be even a more general, if you like, IT-related placement is still going to give you real-world experience in an environment and understanding how the technology works and how the business relies upon it. Those sort of aspects will come through. In terms of other opportunities to engage, I mean, one thing would be the cybersecurity challenge activities and the various ways for linking in there, as Bob will probably say later, or somebody will talk about later, the difference. In which case, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I'll hand over to the next person.
I'm Owanate Bestman. I work with Barclay Simpson, and my talk is about what leading employers are looking for. A good CV is likely to get you to the interview, but standing apart from your competition at the very early stages is far more likely to secure you the role. I deal with mid to senior level candidates, both across financial services, across telecoms, across different industry sectors. Now, the selection process for a security architect and the selection process for a neurosurgeon, while different, has inherent similarities. The aim? To assess an individual's suitability to a role, organization, and team. This is going to be a CV-focused talk, and during the course of this talk, I'm hoping to provide you with information that you can find practically useful, information that should help you secure the path that you are looking for. 15 years, studies have shown that this is how long it takes for a reviewer to look at your CV in the first instance and assess whether you are right for the position. It's quite rude, actually. All those years of studying, all the effort you put in, all it takes is 6 seconds, whether it's a case of yes pal or the delete pal. Now, in order to combat this, we need to make sure that your CV is punchy, relevant, and impactful. Now, how do we do this in 6 seconds? It's something called needs-based selling. Does anyone know what needs-based selling is? All right. I said the horrible word, selling. No one likes to think of themselves as a salesman, but we are all effectively salesmen as of this day if you have a CV. Your CV is your sales pitch, and your audience is the firm that you wish to work for. Now, I'll give an example of needs-based selling. Scenario one, I walk into a retail store. The assistant comes up to me and says, "Oh, hello, sir. Look at this we have a lovely new range of sweatshirts. I think this suits you. We also have these new jeans that have just come in, name brand designer." That's example one. Example two is that I walk into a store and then the shop assistant asks me, "What are you looking for, sir? How can I help you?" Now, number two is more effective because they need to know exactly what I'm looking for. They need to know my need. My need maybe I'm looking for a pair of jeans. They need to know the style of the jeans ideally, my budget, the color, what I'm going to be using it for, if they're any good, whether it's going to be for leisure or whether it's going to be casual dress. So they can get a good understanding of what I'm looking for and then sell that to me. Now, what's this got to do with my CV, right? Is it too soon? Right. Bearing in mind that the firm you wish to join is the customer, how do we find out what they want? We can get it in the job spec. It's a lengthy, typically can be a lengthy document, but we actually get it in the criteria of the actual advertisement. Now, I just want to add a caveat to this. A lot of people assume that when you apply for a position, the CISO looks at your CV. He's going to be sitting there, all right, looking for graduates. Look at CV, yes, yes, no. No, it doesn't work like that. In many situations, the person looking at your CV in the first instance often really doesn't know security. Not all the time, but in some situations, that internal recruiter may be advertising for a receptionist 20 minutes before they saw your CV, okay? So, looking at the criteria of any job spec, this is one live job spec that I pulled off a couple of weeks ago. Criteria 1, you will be analytically minded and prepared to continue learning through online courses. Ideally, candidates will have a graduate degree in information security or computer science with InfoSec as a specialism. Some existing knowledge of InfoSec practices and the commercial use of InfoSec procedures, tools, and concepts. Now, as well as in the job spec, it's got about us, what we're looking for. This is the key point. You need to look at this as a points-based system. And often the criteria would list 10 things. Generally, as a rule, the higher the criteria physically, then the more weighty it is. So you don't need to necessarily focus on number 10 in the list, focus on the top parts. Now, what are you going to do with that information? You are going to reflect that within your CV. Now, it's a shame because any geeks here, like me, will look at that name and think, oh, right, that's smart. Does anyone recognize that name? Never mind, okay. Yes, yeah. Cross between Black Panther and Batman, my two favorite superheroes. So, can't put a live name there. But as you can see from this CV, at the very top is a profile directly related to the criteria. Is that close enough for you guys to see? If not, I'll read it out a little bit. Now, the profile in your CV will change. The first part of your CV will change, ideally, with every submission. It takes a little bit of effort. The body of the CV doesn't need to change much, but the profile should, because it should reflect the criteria of the advertisement for that position. Again, effort, but the whole point of this is to stand out from your competition. So, let's look at point number 2 in the criteria. They are looking for a graduate degree with information security or computer science, with information security as a specialism. Now, what you don't see, because it's a little small, is that point 1, of T'Challa's CV is that he is computer science graduate with a focus on information security. Point 2, dissertation topic, the security risks associated with artificial intelligence and a security operations center setting. Now, this person could have easily put the risks associated with AI in a SOC setting. What does that tell the person that's reviewing the CV? It doesn't tell them anything about security. Instead, what T'Challa is doing is he's spelling out a SOC is a security operations center. He's spelling out not only risks, but the security risks. So what we are doing is we are spoon-feeding them information. As Steven rightly pointed out, he showed examples of job specs that were confusing. Any security certification, either CISA, CISM. You know, this tells us a lot that, yes, security is relatively new, but it's yet to be fully understood. And the person reviewing your CV, assume that they do not understand security. That's reviewing your CV in the first instance. So it's all a case of spoon-feeding and stating the obvious. Okay, point 1, you will be analytically minded and prepared to continue learning through online courses. Point 5 into Charlie's profile is that he keeps up to date with security legislation and best practices through online activity, network, and security-specific activities and events, okay? So again, we are spoon-feeding information. Again, to summarize, the points and the criteria should be reflected in the profile of your resume. And if you notice, what's the first thing you see? You see the name, you see the location, and you see the profile. You're making it easy for the reviewer. Tick, tick, tick. Hopefully in the yes pile. So bear that in mind, okay? Right, where are we? All right, well, we've all been here. Everyone's asking for experience. How can I get the experience if no one's giving me the opportunity? But more importantly, in your CV, how do you create a security-specific CV if you don't have security experience? Well, experience is important regardless of where you work. Even if you work at McDonald's on the weekends, put that in your CV. It's not just a case of, does this person know security? Because is this person going to be beneficial to my team? But does this person have the work ethic? Is this person going to, after a crazy Sunday night, is that person going to come into work and chin up and get on with work? So that's really important to have work experience within your CV. But if it's not security or IT related, why emphasize that? There's no need to have a whole page centered on working in a bar, and so I'm stereotyping here, all the jobs I did as a student, working in a bar or working in a cafe, listing your responsibilities. Instead, list achievements, but don't just focus on that. You can just put titles. What we do is we want to put emphasis on security within itself. We want to put emphasis on where you want to go. So, list every single security or technology associations you are affiliated with. It's not IISP in your CV, it's the Institute of Information Security Practitioners. What have you learned since joining here? List it over and over again. Any network event you've attended, why wouldn't you put that within your CV? Why wouldn't you have a section dedicated to that? Now, publications, fancy terminology. If you've been part of a blog, that's a publication within itself, okay? So I'm a strong advocate in demonstrating in your CV that you are in security for the right reasons and that you are putting in the effort, not just because it's a lucrative and growing sector. It is, but you need to demonstrate above and beyond how you stand apart from your competition. So this is what leading employers are looking for. Bear with me, a little bit late. And this is your second CV, maybe even your first. Now, 92% of recruiters use, of course you can.
About qualifications recruitment, should they be related to research, or should be something like your own blog related to security?
All of it. Doesn't matter. Absolutely all of it. I listen to a security podcast, Smashing Security. It's quite a good one, apart from the amount of adverts in these podcasts. But I was speaking to someone who was a contributor to that show, posted that all over his CV. Now, he did have some experience behind him, but that immediately stood him apart from the competition when going forward for a position. So anything, absolutely anything. This isn't subterfuge. This is highlighting your strengths and not highlighting your weaknesses. You know? Again, it's sales. Okay, now this is CV number 2, and by all means, feel free to cut in for questions. I quite like that. CV number 2 is your LinkedIn profile. 92% of recruiters use social media as a means to gain more information on applicants. Certain things that you can use with LinkedIn that will make you, that will increase your presence within the market. Remember, you submit your CV, but they come to you and LinkedIn. Hiring managers come to you as a result. They say start with a professional photo. I say as long as you have a photo, that's the main thing, and it's not unprofessional. You don't need to be suited and booted in your profile photo. Nothing wrong with showing a bit of personality. Some of the pen testers I deal with, even though they've got years of experience behind them. A lot of their profile pictures are like superheroes or something like that. That's accepted, depending on where you want to go. But for the meantime, you can be a bit creative, but at the same time, as long as there's nothing unprofessional. Now, in terms of your headline, in terms of what you are doing currently, do not put that you are working at Next Retailers. Put that you are a security graduate seeking a new opportunity. The reason being, the search algorithms link to your headline title specifically. So if security is buried in your CV and your LinkedIn profile, then it's just not to your benefit whatsoever. I always see your LinkedIn, it should be act as if. Act as if you are that person. Your LinkedIn profile should be where you want to be. Obviously, everything should be accurate and should be the truth. How are we time? Good. Add a background image. I think it makes you stand out as well. Fill in as much of your profile as possible. That's the latter part. Join groups, join relevant groups as well. I just want to point out that during the selection process, your potential hiring manager will look at your profile. When the internal recruiter says, all right, out of 200 applicants, I've whittled it down to 20. They will, if they're any good, they will look at your profile. If you are linked in with other security practitioners, that speaks volumes. One way to do this is to join a lot of relevant security groups. There are thousands of them all over LinkedIn, and there's no barrier to entry whatsoever. And by joining a lot of these groups, connection number 3 then becomes number 2, bringing you ever closer to your step. Feel free to add links to your publications as well within your LinkedIn profile. Like posts, share relevant contents, ask for recommendations. The more posts you like, the higher your profile and so forth. But you guys will probably know better than me. I don't even have a Facebook profile, so. All right. Now, it's all very well and good creating the image of someone passionate about security, but I think you really do need to be passionate about it, because we get past this stage, it's face-to-face with a hiring manager, and you need to be in a position to back your talk. Now, I've listed a number of different sites, publications I turn to keep up to date with market trends, market activities, security trends, latest threats, and so forth. And security is ever changing, so it's important to make use of these facilities. Also, networking. We've all heard this, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's very true, but it's also what you do with it as well. Again, the more networking events you attend, it does get you closer to securing that role. You will hear of opportunities before they come to the market. You will meet people who work in the organizations you are applying for, and that's a great icebreaker in front of a hiring manager. Yep, I know this person that works in the Security Operations Center seems to be quite happy, so I'd like to, investigate further in this role. It does speak volumes, so do not underestimate that. With that in mind, there are some wrong assumptions. Again, that's meant to say the hiring manager is the first person to review my CV. The hiring manager is not the first person to review your CV. This is very much a numbers game. So with all this advice I'm giving you, you need to be applying to a lot of positions, as crude as that sounds. It takes a lot of effort, but it is still a numbers game. And rest assured that in most scenarios, the first person reviewing your CV probably doesn't know that much, well, that might be an exaggeration, but assume that the first person reviewing your CV doesn't know that much about security, so they must be spoon-fed this information. Wrong assumption number 2, do not list work experience if it is not relevant to security. Again, put your work experience in, just don't focus on that too much. Good work experience shows that you have, or you most probably have, a good, strong work ethic, which is important. You could be the most talented pen tester in the world, but if you don't show up to work, what's the point of that? So do not underestimate that. One CV fits all, that's not true. You can have a standard CV, however, I would change the profile each and every time as long as it's accurate to reflect the criteria of the job spec you are applying for. Now, this takes effort, but this is a competitive market. That in mind, they say because of this security skills shortage, I have less competition. You have more competition. I'm speaking to people, again, my target is mid to senior level security practitioners. I get calls on a regular basis from people trying to get into security at different stages in their life. And it's easy for me to separate the wheat from the chaff. Now, I can't, in most scenarios, hiring managers don't pay me a fee to find graduates, but I'm always happy to give advice. And one of the trends I see is that there are a lot of people that just want to get in it because it is a lucrative market. So what you must do, someone that is passionate about security, is you must do above and beyond, because although there are more skill shortages, it's still very competitive out there. And take nothing for granted. No one would have ever thought that the housing market would crash. That was to be stable, so take nothing for granted. Right. I just put that up because I like that. So to summarize, your CV is your introduction to a firm and a hiring manager, and you only have a limited window of time to make an impact. So even if you do have limited work experience, there are still ways and means to convey your potential suitability to a role. There is a skill shortage within security, but hiring managers, they're no less selective about who they bring on board to the organization. I hope these little nuggets of information have aided you on what should be an exciting journey, and I'm ready for your questions. Thank you for your time. Yes, go ahead.
I would like to know what would you say are the key sections
Pardon?
on a CV, the key sections on a CV.
Okay.
From your perspective, and if it is important to state your soft skills and also your hobbies.
Hobbies, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Key sections in your CV, it would be key points. It would be, traditionally, it would be work experience, and then it would be other, such as hobbies and publications. However, the work experience may be quite limited, so instead, we put more emphasis. You can put another emphasis on publications, put another emphasis on affiliations, security affiliations, another emphasis on security bodies, another emphasis on hobbies. And hobbies are important as well because they allow you to differentiate yourself from your competitors. And when I say competitors, I mean the people around you. I'd just be a wee bit careful in hobbies. I wouldn't put anything political in hobbies, personally. Many of my clients do have political affiliations. I certainly wouldn't put that. I wouldn't put football teams. But apart from that, you can be quite creative, if you will. And try and stay away from the cliches. Reading, everyone can read. You know, and do something a bit different as well. Yeah.
As far as the quantity of points on the profile, is there a recommended
Quantity of points.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That in terms of the key points initially.
Yeah. Would you recommend this?
Good question. I say 5 to 7. We don't want to, because remember we've only got 6 seconds to make an impact. So I say 5 to 7 is a good number. And people, they don't read, they skim read. Look up for what, just security. So, and put security within the key points as well. Similar to your LinkedIn profile. Your LinkedIn profile is searched as well by the headline. If I'm looking for a graduate, I'll put security graduate. So if someone's title is security graduate seeking next opportunity, graduate seeking security role, it'll be right up there. Is that it? Any other questions? Thought there'd be more questions than this. We're still cold. All right, if that's it, I'll grab a coffee.
Good afternoon, everyone. At the back, can you hear me okay? I do tend to be nice and loud at the beginning and then fade. So I'll repeat the option. If you do want to move forward, feel free. So the title of my presentation is Professionalism in Information Security. So here's what I plan to talk about. Or even this one. Yeah. Perhaps, I don't know if the lights can be switched off. It's a very small screen and it's even further away from me. So if you want to, again, move forward, feel free. But the big picture of what I'm going to use my time for is very briefly talk about me. And I only do that just so that perhaps you have some focused questions that you can address that I may be able to help with. Professionalism is really all about doing the right thing. It's nothing, I'm not going to be teaching you anything that you don't already know. In fact, if somebody asks you later on today, how was the presentation, you might actually say to them, well, actually, we had a session from this chap called Gurbir Singh, and it was completely useless. I didn't learn a thing, because everything I'm going to tell you about, you already know. It's about the behavior, professional standards that we work to. It's right from wrong. It's actually how you put it into practice in your day-to-day job that I'm hoping to share my experiences with you. That might be useful. And to illustrate some of the difficulties, when I started my professional career quite a long time ago, the roles that were available then, 30-odd years ago, are different to the roles that are available now. So I'm going to look at different types of roles that are available, and also to illustrate the value of professionalism, indicate what happens when it's missing. And then talk about the fact that it's not something you do at the beginning. It's something that a professional attitude is something that you'll need to apply throughout your professional career. And then I want to go off track a little bit and talk to you about some of the new opportunities in information security that you may not be familiar with. It certainly wasn't around when I was at your age. And again, it's just for consideration. And then finish off with the fact that it's continuously evolving. So some of the rules I want to talk about are stuff that you know, but it's something which you'll have to address at each stage of your career, even when you get to my age. And then I'll finish off with some links to Thales, a web link which will point you to some roles that Thales has at the moment available in terms of graduate appointments and indeed apprenticeships as well. But the next slide, I'm just going to go off track a little bit because I want to emphasize that I was here about 35 years ago and I look like that. It's not a good picture, but my daughter, when she saw my tash, which I used to have then, scribbled all over it. When I was here 35 years ago, it's called the Manchester Polytechnic. So this is a bit of a homecoming for me. I studied combined studies. In fact, I came to the Polytechnic to study science, but this is in the early 80s, and if you remember, computers were just making the headway. The Spectrum, Sinclair Spectrum, ZX81, BBC microcomputer, that's really what I was fed on. And then by the time I came to study science, my interest had changed, and it was IT. I studied computing. So I graduated in combined studies, majoring in computing. For the next 10 years, I taught in a college, teaching computing. I joined ICL Limited. ICL, I'm sure most of you know, if you're from Manchester, Manchester has a unique history when it comes to computing. And ICL was one of the first computing companies based here in Manchester, making computers, physically making hardware. Not much of that happens in this part of the world anymore. It was later taken over by Fujitsu, a Japanese company, and I was there for about 15 years altogether. And since the last 3 years, I've been with Thales. Many people probably haven't heard of Thales, but most of the metro that we have here in Manchester is designed, built, and maintained by Thales. So most of the work that Thales does is for the government, the Ministry of Defence, aviation, avionics, and even space. International Space Station, parts of the space probes that have gone to different parts of the solar system, and indeed the Mars rover that's going to be landing on Mars in 2020, also made by Thales. Great range of different sectors that Thales operates in. So, oh yeah, this is the distraction I want to move to. I put this slide on for two reasons. One is something that you might be interested in. One of my interests is writing, and I write about space. And there's a book launch happening a few meters from here on the 16th of March. It's free, if that's your type of interest. The book title, The Indian Space Program, tells you what it's about. It's quite a big book, but my interest in space has led me to work on the second reason why I'm showing you this, is that I'm writing a piece about cybersecurity threats to space assets. And it's a piece that will appear in Pulse and elsewhere, and if you're interested in that, just perhaps look me up. So, professionalism. I'm going to relate this to my personal experiences, but the principles, the foundations of professionalism lie in particular specific values, which are not new to you. I'm sure most of what I want to teach you today, or talk about today, is stuff that your parents told you. Certainly, things like honesty. Sooner or later, you'll be in positions where you are, those positions have power. And those positions of power can lead you astray. And in order to remain honest to yourself, to your employers, and your colleagues, is a central core that you'll need to run through all your professional life. And the rest of these characteristics also apply. Being diligent. It's very easy to finish a job early, go off to the pub. But in order for you to progress through your career, you need to be thorough and professional and comprehensive in everything you do. An objective. You will be operating in environments where perhaps you're doing a website development for a political party that you don't agree with. Maybe it's an organization for environmental approach that you don't agree with. Or perhaps it's for a religious organization that you disagree with. Well, you can't pick and choose your values. You have to be a professional and make sure you provide your professional end product in the same way. And integrity. You know, you've got so many cases of people putting together CVs which are not 100% kosher. They, in order for you to progress, you need to be projecting an image that ensures that you are trustworthy and consistent. You need to be honest, not loyal. Does anybody recognize that term? To be honest, not loyal. It's very easy if your employer asks you if you are willing to be loyal to their employer. And especially when you're younger, not quite sure of how things are moving, you will be tempted to say, yes, I'm loyal, and you are loyal. But you need to be honest, put everything else, these characteristics beforehand. These are values that I've got from the Code of Ethics from the IISP. I belong to a number of different organizations, including the IISP, CCP, ISACA, ISC squared. They all have a code of ethics. And no matter which company you go to, when you sign a contract, you'll have a code of ethics that you'll need to follow there too. So ensuring that you follow very basic principles of right and wrong is something you'll need to do throughout your professional career. All of that boils down to just being nice. It's not complicated, it's not difficult. Be like the people that you would wish others that you work with to be. So here's some examples of some of the roles that I've done in some cases and some of the professional attitudes you should hold with them. So things like security auditor, security analyst, architects, pen testers, firewall engineers. These are the sort of roles that were available to me when I first started. Modern roles, things like data scientists, deep learning scientists, and so on, I have no idea what they are. I don't know, and you probably end up doing some of these roles. But the principles of professionalism will still apply. So, for example, for many, some of my roles have involved doing risk assessments. And it's very important that when I do a risk assessment, I produce a risk treatment plan and identify things that the system owner should implement. Sometimes the recommendations can be very expensive. It can be prohibitively expensive. So unless those controls are put into place, that system shouldn't go online, shouldn't be operating. And it's very easy for you to be working closely, as you would be with a system owner, for the system owner to come to you and say, well, Gurbir, you know, you say that we need two-factor authentication, but really it's pretty much a small group of people going to be using the system, and having two-factor authentication is too expensive an option for us. We don't really need that. Can you remove it from your recommendation? Or I've also done security audits. When you're doing a security audit, again, you come out with some recommendations. And it's very possible that some of your audit findings might include evidence that a particular certification that the organization was claiming to have, you don't find any evidence for that. And you have to record it in your report. Without that accreditation, the particular system would have to stop operating. It would affect the contract that particular client has, perhaps go out of business. And because some of these things are quite expensive, it's very possible that as a system owner might come to you and say, hey, Gurbir, you've identified something, certification that's missing. Well, actually, it's not missing. It's the person who needs to do it. Is just on leave. He's been on long-term leave, and we haven't got our paperwork in place. So your report doesn't reflect the situation. It's very important for you to stand your ground and say, look, I haven't got the evidence. I can't put forward a recommendation which contravenes what I'm looking at. And it's particularly important for when you are very young, very new to the environment, that you, although it's very easy to be distracted when you're younger, it's very important for you to put your foot down, insist on your professional approach. So whenever it comes to responsibilities, you have power. And very soon, when you first start, you find, you don't know where the restaurant is, you can't find the way out to the reception, you feel a little bit out of place. But gradually, a time will come when actually you know better than some of the people who've been there, senior experienced individuals. And it's not always obvious when that will happen. So I want to illustrate with some examples of what happens when professionalism is missing. I'm hoping none of these examples are going to be new to you, but most of you will probably have had or have a Samsung phone. Samsung is a big company in South Korea, family owned. And Lee Jae-young was not only last year convicted for 5 years for trying to hide some funds offshore. It had a very serious impact on the South Korean government as well. It's a very big deal. If the individuals applied the principles of integrity and did the right thing in terms of their own laws and regulations, things like that would not happen. Some of you will remember that dreadful video from Delta Airlines, where this passenger was dragged away from a seat on board an aircraft so they could be given to somebody else. The reputation loss for Delta Airlines for that particular issue cost them millions. And if you were working as somebody, cabin staff, for example, you could have intervened and stopped that. Even if it's not part of your remit, you can see right from wrong. So professionalism isn't just about your little tightly controlled bits of your remit, but it's about a wider right or wrong in the environment in which you work. Rolls-Royce. And this isn't unique to Rolls-Royce, this is just a celebrated example. Many companies, in order to get the lucrative contracts, pay bribes. And they pay bribes because it's a very competitive field, but also because they abandon those values of professionalism. And sooner or later, you might find yourself in that position where you're having to authorize something that you know is wrong. Or indeed, knowing something is wrong in particularly the team that you work in and not speaking up about it. Tesco, another example quite recently, cooked their accounts. They showed profits that weren't there, just so that they could keep and maintain their profit, their market share. The integrity of the people at the top is highly questionable, and indeed they were charged for it. Harvey Weinstein. I don't need to go into that. It's a dramatic shift into the way that Hollywood operates as a result of the revelations that came out of that. Again, why? The people who knew didn't do the right thing in terms of their professional obligations. And right now, we're going through an appalling situation where voluntary sector, which is supposed to help the people who need the most help in the world, are also themselves now tainted by dreadful claims, and it's a very messy world. So professionalism helps us to keep that a little bit more tidier, and it's important for you to follow those values and principles and ethics through your career. I can't quite see a clock here. How are we doing for time? 10 minutes, great, thank you. Generally speaking, if in a professional setting your manager asks you to do something, always say yes. So this is my personal experience. You say yes initially, then go away and find out what the requirement is. It may be to develop a new app, for example, for a client, and your manager's asked you to do it within a couple of months with a certain budget, say yes, go away, analyze it, come back and say, well, actually, it'll take about a month or 3 months or even less, a shorter period of time or a different budget. Rather than initially always say yes and then analyze it and then go back and say, well, in order for me to achieve that, here's what I need. That kind of approach is generally more constructive. If there is, if your manager says your colleague is off sick, he was going to address a particular meeting for a customer, I can't, I'm trying to find somebody else to fill this hole. Try to help out. Say, okay, I'll do that, even if it means you have to make some personal adjustments at your end. So it's not somebody else's problem. Try to take on and own it and help out. If you work with, I've worked with people in public sector, private sector. These days there isn't much in it. But generally speaking, I found that, years ago I used to play squash and then go to the pub. These days I just go to the pub. But when I did used to play squash, I always played squash with somebody who was much better than I was. So in the same way, work with people who are more industrious, more frantic, more demanding. It'll be tough, but you will learn from them, especially if you do it early on in your career. It'll set you on your way. And as you know, I'm sure already, you never end up a scenario where you're just working on one thing at a time. You'll be working full-time. If you have a family, you've got family obligations. You'll be studying part-time. Perhaps some of the courses that we saw earlier, you'll be studying for professional development and learning for examinations. I remember in, I think it was 1986, when I finished my very last exam here, and I thought, well, that's it. It was about microprocessors, 808, Intel 8086. And I thought, this is it, surely. I'm not going to be doing any more exams after this. But I've been doing exams throughout my career until the last one I did was last year. Never stop learning. So quickly jump through a few new technologies that you might be interested in. Don't know if you've heard of something called the high altitude pseudo satellites. It's 20 kilometers and above altitude. These types of devices are coming along. You might have heard Google Loon project. Same sort of concept, but these are huge things, over 100 meters long, operate at 20 kilometers altitude, and they can look down at a big area of about 500 kilometers. And on that area, they can provide telecommunication services or indeed navigation, observation, surveillance. Particularly important for emergency situations because they can be set up there very quickly. They're portable. They're not manned. Just put them up there, leave them up there for a year. They have a lifetime of about 5 years and come bring with an annual maintenance activity. HAPS. This is something that will be changing, operating in the world in which you'll be working in the next decade. You don't have to be a techie or a geeky individual to work and contribute to cybersecurity. One of the key issues is people. Most of the breaches result from people not following the rules and policies that their organization implements. Security awareness training is a key area which in terms of cost effectiveness is probably the best in terms of enhancing cybersecurity. Multi-factor authentication. How many of you use multi-factor authentication for Google Mail and so on? If you don't, use that. That will give you a much more security, a very low cost, very efficient manner. And most of the breaches occur because key accounts, privileged accounts, get breached. And if you can put some processes around that and put some tools around that, again, that's an area to look out for in the next few years. Most of you get your internet from your 3G phones or Wi-Fi at home or Wi-Fi at work. In the next decade, you'll be getting internet from space. There's a couple of companies who are going to be putting thousands of satellites, small satellites in low Earth orbit, so no matter where you are in the world, it doesn't have to be built up area, you'll be able to get 4G level quality Wi-Fi signal. It is using what they call high throughput satellites. These are satellites that provide high speed, larger capacity telecommunication facilities, services. And two companies are operating, OneWeb and SpaceX. SpaceX only last week launched 2 satellites to test this technology. They're already in space. A couple of years' time, they should have something operational, and within about the middle of the next decade, you should have this kind of scenario. Plenty of opportunities there. So, in order to develop your professionalism and develop your career, mistakes and failures, quite common. Make them and have them. It's not a big deal. I've, in my professional career, I've done a lot of, in the early days I used to do server support, and in one particular case, because we had all these, remember these CRT displays? We were moving office and I had a post-it where this particular CRT was moving, and I was operating through remote desktop, Windows remote desktop, another server, live server. So at the end of the day, I shut down my computer, my workstation, but in actual fact, I shut down the live server. Now, I admitted that, there's no problem, you know, it's a cluster that just failed over, but you will make mistakes, it's not particularly a big deal. And again, believe in yourself. This is the point I was making earlier. As time will come when you're no longer a junior member, and do feel free to challenge your seniors. It's quite a lot of exciting stuff that's coming your way. I won't read out all these things here, but in Internet of Things, self-drive cars, advanced persistent threats, it's a big area, industrial control systems, and artificial intelligence. But apart from that, have some activity and interest outside work. It's not only important just to have 2 weeks off so you can physically take a break from all the routine activities, but also intellectually have a break. Think about where your direction of your career. Indeed, you might want to do something completely different. But those interests outside work, as previous speakers have said, hobbies are very valuable. It makes you a bit more of a whole person than you otherwise would be. And just to repeat some of the things I've already mentioned, if you are being put into a difficult situation, challenge any questionable instructions. And these are values, nothing necessarily to do with information security. It's no matter what career you go into. And where you go into, this is what I said, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm sure your teachers and your lecturers have already told you, you can do whatever you like. It just takes you about 20 or 30 years to realize that that really is true. And being a happy individual makes sure that you will actually do all the work that you want to do in the way you want to do it. And then finally, I've got a link here for Thales Group. It's on the internet. Anybody can access it. And there are categories for graduate and apprenticeship jobs as well. Happy to take some questions.
Okay, thank you for that. So, in the slot for lunch, we've got 3 people. I hope we're about to appear. That's great. We've got Ben Lister from NCC. I don't know who he's who, so you just have to say that's Ben. We've got Aidan Lennie from BT. And we've got William Davison from Avecto. So we're going to talk about expectations. I'll leave it to you, chap.
I'll start now since Ben's struggling with the slides and things. So what we're doing here is basically the three of us are all working within the industry somehow. Ben and I are both on placement. Aidan is a graduate. And so we're doing kind of like a panel type thing. So if anyone has any questions or anything, you should be able to add them via the link on the slides. So we'll all tell you all a bit about ourselves, what we're doing, how we got to where we are. And then we can do like a question and answer session at the end. So we wait a couple of minutes while Ben gets the slides up.
Sorry guys, it was all working before.
This is well rehearsed, as you can tell.
Thanks for coming. Like Will said, I'm Ben, Will, Aidan. This session is all about what to expect when you join industry. So we've just all recently started various jobs or roles in industry. And this session is all about us, telling us about who we are, what we do, and our experience. But there's also going to be an opportunity for you guys. You guys will be in the same position we're in now soon, hopefully. So mainly we want this as a Q&A thing for you guys. We were meant to have Google Slides working with a Q&A, and you could like add a link, but it's not working, which is typical. So we'll just have to we'll see what happens when we get there. So yeah, is there a clicker? It's gonna work. Yeah. All right. So this is me. I'm studying at University of Manchester, where I do maths and computer science. Though mainly I'm a mathematician. That's mainly what I do. And that's always what I was interested in. So it was quite a different route coming into the security industry. How I got there was I initially got quite interested in cryptography as a natural lead through from the maths. And from there, I got into security, and I got my placement at Ncc Group. So to get my placement, what they do is they have a set of challenges that they put online. They're still available at the minute. There's a stand through in the exhibition hall, and you can get the link there. But basically what they say is if you do these challenges, you do well. It doesn't matter what background you've come from. It doesn't matter what you do at uni or what you do elsewhere. They'll consider you. So it's really good because it meant that it's me coming from a maths background, not necessarily a security background. They gave me a chance. I took the chance, and I am really loving it now. So on my internship, so what Ncc Group do is I'm part of the pen testing. So yeah, so it's basically testing from a security perspective. That's various things from companies. So it might be a company's web app, it might be their internal infrastructure, or it might be something unique just for that company. Though I don't necessarily do any of that. I'm not allowed to do any of that testing. I'm not trained yet as just the intern. So mainly what I do is training. So we have a huge training network. So something like a Ctf style challenges. There's over 100 of them. So they allow me to gain the skills. Not coming from a security background, they've allowed me to gain some skills. They've put me on some training courses for various things, see if I like them. I also do some shadowing, so I get to apply the skills that I've learned to actual jobs, obviously under the supervision of someone who knows what they're doing. And that's really good. That's one of the main pieces of advice I give you if you're looking for somewhere is find a job where they're going to put the effort in. They're going to put as much effort into you as you're going to put into them. You're a graduate. They can't expect you to know everything. What you need someone who is going to help you. Security is massive, and you need someone who's going to help you find exactly what you want to do within the industry. Some other pieces of advice that I've found from being my 8 months that I've spent in industry. And the big one that I want to get over to you is the first couple of months, I really struggled. I found it massively overwhelming. It was like I've come from this background where I didn't know anything, and everyone talks in acronyms. Everything's a 3-letter acronym, and there's hundreds of them. And I remember I was listening to people talk in the office, and as they're talking, I'm furiously Googling what this means. And it really stressed me out. I spent a lot of my time thinking I'm not good enough. This is not for me. I don't know what I'm doing. And my piece of advice to you is don't stress out about that. Everyone feels the same. Security is massive, and you're never going to know everything. Someone will always know more than you about something. And when you accept that, you can then use it. So when I was furiously stressing about, I don't know what any of these things mean, I was lucky enough to be in an environment where I could ask people. I could be like, hey, I don't know what this means. And they would put the time and effort into me to tell me. And what I really wish someone had told me before I started is that it's okay to feel like you don't know anything, because no one feels like they know anything. I've had conversations with people who have been in the industry for 10 years, or even longer for some, and they go, I don't know what's going on. I need to Google what this acronym means. And once I realize that everyone's in the same boat as me, it really helps me out. So my other point that I want to say from expecting in an industry is people will come from all walks. So there's a massive scope for whatever background you come from. So my maths background, yeah, that's fine. There's someone in the office, he did physics at university. Learned how to code on the side, and just thought it looked fun, so gave it a go, and he's doing really well. I know even though someone who did music tech at university, obviously they didn't go straight into a security job, they worked through some IT roles and stuff, but if coming from a different background doesn't give you a disadvantage to someone who's come from that security background where they learn a lot of stuff at university. All it means is you bring in a different set of skills, and that is useful for whatever company you're in. So I'm going to pass on to Will.
Oh. Yep, so I come from a fairly similar background to Ben in the same sense that we're both studying at the University of Manchester. I'm just doing straight computer science, so none of the maths there here. And at the moment, I'm working for a company called Avecto. So before placement, I didn't really know who they were or what they did. So what they make is endpoint security software in like a business context. So they make, it's basically the idea that organizations can achieve what's called least privilege. So the end users don't have a lot of admin rights and things which can make, I guess, breaches or any security threats a lot more prolific. So what I'm doing now at Avecto is I'm actually a tester. So I'm not a security tester like Ben, I'm just a tester at a security company. And the advantage of that is it means I get to move around the different departments and learn a lot around the industry and practices and things that I might not get from, I say, other areas. So I've worked on the Windows product and I sort of learned a lot of things about Windows domains and setups and I guess the needs of how security can be implemented in the business, which isn't really something you get taught at university. I'm also working on their web product at the moment, which is quite cool because I get to do some sort of web security testing and a little bit of considerations around that and pick up a lot of things in that area too. But I guess the point I'm trying to make with my thing is that I'm not doing specific security related things. I'm kind of a tester within a security company and getting a lot of experience around that. So, yeah, so that's pretty much it. I haven't really got as much to offer in terms of advice and things like that. And I guess the point we're trying to reiterate is that you don't necessarily have to go down a very traditional path of doing a lot of programming, a lot of specific security-centric work. There's a lot of other jobs and roles within the industry. So I kind of find that being a computer science student, it puts you towards development quite a lot. There's a lot of focus on coding and people do a lot of things like that. But there are, I guess, other aspects to security and other ways into the industry. So I feel if anyone has any questions or anything like that they want to ask at the end, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Cheers, Will. Yeah, so I'm Aidan, I work at BT. I've got to admit, I've got a little bit of photo envy. Mine's not quite as cool standing in front of a graffiti background. But yeah, so last summer I graduated with a computer science degree from Lancaster University. Then I went on to a placement in the grad scheme at BT and got placed within BT Security. Unlike what most of my family think, BT Security doesn't actually do anything with broadband. It's providing security solutions to corporations and enterprises. So they may come to us with consideration or concern, saying perhaps we're planning on moving some of our systems to the cloud. Can you help us make sure we're safe when we're doing that? Or they might say, we're not sure how protected we are when we're going to the internet. Can you have a look at our systems and see what you could recommend? So that's sort of what BT Security does. In terms of my role as a cloud security architect, I actually sit within the product launch team. So we have a team called the CAL. When a vendor such as Cisco make this new toy and bring it out to the public, They'll say it does X, Y, and Z, and then it'll go into the cal. They'll give it a little prod, see what it does, and see if it could be used in our portfolio, if it does anything that we don't currently offer, or if it does something a lot better, and if it maps with our roadmap. And then once they've decided if we're going to use it or not, they'll pass it through to us, and we'll do all the vigorous testing and essentially just create the blueprints for the delivery team to then go and deliver it to our customers. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's my technical side of the role. However, on the grad scheme with BT, it's almost like a queue jump into the management scheme as well. So I'm also doing a couple of roles. I was lucky enough to be invited to an event just before Christmas in Lincoln with 100 senior managers in BT security, where we're having a look at a general topic, identifying issues and providing solutions to them. So I'm currently leading a team of 10 people to more effectively provide solutions to our customers by improving the relationship between our sales team and our delivery team. So yeah, that's sort of what I do. Any piece of advice that I've got, first of all, is just to play the number game. Make sure any of these extracurricular things you get offered, make sure you do as many as possible, because some of them will, even though you might not think it, will actually become relevant when you come to getting in a job. From a techie side, there's actually a CompTIA in the room back there. I'd recommend having a look at them. The Network Plus is probably a good place to start looking if you join a telecommunication company in specifically. That can really help to hit the ground running. Also, some tools if you've got a bit of spare time to have a look at. There's Amazon AWS, that's something that's really interesting, companies getting involved with at the minute. Also Apex and SQL, that's something that's really hitting the market. But yeah, I suppose that's all the advice from me. Has anybody got any questions?
So any questions about literally anything we want. So this is your opportunity to, anything you're worried about going into industry, you want to know how we did it, advice what you should be doing now, anything like that. This is kind of your time to be racking our brains. We're basically what you guys are right now. We're just stood in front of here rather than sat down here. So have we got any questions? Well, we'll go. How
many jobs did you each apply for before you
phoned up? So
I jammed off quite a lot of applications myself. I want to say probably around 10 or so, but because of when Avecto did their application process, it was fairly early on, so I think I accepted it in around about November time. So just because they did their applications early on, I didn't have to apply for too many myself.
What I'd recommend is having a look at recruitment companies. So you only actually have to apply to one place, and then automatically, inherently, you apply to about 50 places at once. So
yeah, so I applied for, I'd say maybe 5 or 6. I mainly just went for pen testing, security roles. Though, like I said, some advice I would give you is if you can't find a role like that, find a role like Will's got, where it's a role that you may have the experience for within a security setting, and then you can use that role, go there for a year or 2, learn what they do, apply your security mindset to it, and then use that, jump from the back of that into a more of a security role.
Yeah, so jumping off that as well with what Ben said, whilst my role's not inherently security focused, because we're at a security company, they're quite good at letting me go to events and things like that, which are irrelevant. So I went to B-Sides in Manchester over the summer, so it's like a security event, loads of really interesting talks and stuff like that. And then Ben and I both off to B-Sides again in Glasgow. So just being at a security company, there's a load of scope to learn and pick up really interesting and relevant things, even if it's not specifically attached to my role. And then I can then take that back and sort of use it in the job as well. So.
Yeah, going on the conference things, conferences are really good because 1, usually they're free for students. 2, you get to have a better idea about what's actually happening in industry. And finally, if you're lucky, there's a free bar at the end, so that's always fun. So I had no prior knowledge, basically. And so for my internship, it's basically a 1-year training thing. But I taught from the grad scheme. We have for Ncc Group, I don't know about other companies, we have a 6-month grad scheme. And it's basically, they will give you a test of, a go with all the different types of things you can test. So it would be like Linux, Windows, databases, web applications, They'll give you a whole broad range of everything. And you basically do that for about 6 months. And then they say that if you can do that grad scheme, then by the end of it, you'll be good enough they'll slowly get you in jobs. So like most of the time you'll be working with someone else first off, and then maybe after another few months, then you'll start doing jobs by yourself.
Yeah, also you don't have to worry about not necessarily having that much experience in, say, pen testing if that's what you want to do. There's that much demand for it, and there's just not enough many people that can do it, so they're willing to take people that don't know how to do it, as long as they're keen to show an interest.
It's a good company you apply for if you can go say, no, I may have these, so some basic skills that you probably want as a pen tester. They probably want, you know what Nmap is, you know what the Metasploit framework is, to name a few. Like, they're the probably things like, as long as you know them, you know your way around them, they can then build on that. They believe that if you're passionate enough, if you're willing to put the effort in, a good company will build on what you already know.
And also, if you don't already know Python, it's worth learning that just because it's such a popular language. It might not be the best language in the world, but it's the most popular and easy to use, so it's good for scripting and whatnot.
Other questions?
I think you mentioned training. Would you say most of what you've learned has come directly from training, or is it more job?
So, it's a mixture. I think so. The training for me was really good because it gave me exposure. It was little things like, I remember, so like I said, stressing out on my first day because we have these 100-odd challenges, and the only one I could do was, I could do one of them, and it was labeled trivial. And, and there was 5 other ones that were called trivial, and I had no clue what to do. So that kind of training was really good because it gave me exposure to what are these things. But after that, the training is, the best training is on the job. Or not necessarily on the job. I found just talking to people, being in an office around people working, you'll hear people say, oh yeah, I've got this issue, this is what I'm doing. Or you'll hear these people having a problem, talking out. And you can just pick up, being in a company where everyone talks, you can pick up little bits and pieces from everyone. And that was probably the most useful. Anyone else? All right, so I had a few pre-prepared questions. I kind of thought, like, all right, so a year ago, I would have been sat in the audience viewing. What did I want to know? So a year ago, my biggest thing was, like, how do I get into it? How do I get into security? How do I know what's going on, kind of thing? And I'd say one of the most helpful thing that has helped me learn about what's going on is Twitter. So if anyone has got Twitter, there are loads of really, really good security researchers on Twitter who will just like, they'll send the odd tweet about what they're doing, what's their job, and then they interact with each other. So like one of them will post a problem, and you'll be able to see real life problems, real life solutions, and it's a really good way of learning about what's going on. So there's if you're interested, come to me. I've got kind of a list of what I'd call the starter Twitter security people. These are the kind of things that like these guys will give you a good indication of what's going on. So other things that I thought is, so I want to mention Ctfs. So Ctfs are a really, really good way of developing skills, putting what you know into practice kind of thing, but they are not vital. I hate Ctfs. I'm really bad at them. But it's not being bad at Ctfs is not a, if you're good at them, that's great. Like, you know the skills, that is a great thing. I'm not taking anything away from that. If you're bad at them, don't worry. Like, it's not going to give you, it's not a clear indication of your skill set. It may just be that you can't, it's not for you. Like, so don't stress yourself out if you go to one thing and then you can't do anything, because I've done that plenty of times, and I'm doing all right. So have we got any other questions? You guys want to say anything?
I think you've kind of covered everything.
Yeah.
We will be in the room back there, so if you want to watch us privately, that's fine.
Yeah.
I suppose mine's not so much of a question, but I will second everything that you guys have said, because I'm in a similar position. I've been in my role for just over a year now, and you
right, cheers for that. So yeah, I suppose if you haven't got any more questions, yeah? I mean, we'll all be around. Yeah, we'll be around if you want to come around to talk to us, yeah. Well, it's getting worse.
I'd like to introduce Keith Miller from, oh gosh, I'm losing it completely
From
now.
here?
From Manchester Metropolitan University. Now, Keith's been doing some fantastic work within the region and professionalism and developing profession within the Greater Manchester area, but also on some initiatives that are nationwide and international. So it gives you another big picture of where our profession's going. So with no further ado, over to you, Keith.
Thank you very much, Amanda. And thank you very much for coming here to Manchester Metropolitan University. And on behalf of the institution, welcome and thank you to all at IISP for the opportunity to host this as well. It's always, you know, when you've got something, a talk about cybersecurity and inspiring the future, which was part of the brief, you know, where do you start in terms of doing something like this? And I think, from my point of view, this is going to be a little bit interactive. So please, you know, do say something if you want to as I go through. As Amanda was saying, I'm based here. I was head of School of Computing and Maths and Digital Technology up until last November. So I've got a background in the discipline and in developing it as an area. But I'm currently head of international for the faculty, which is quite interesting. The title of my talk is Cybersecurity, Inspiring the Future, Local to Global. And I want to talk a little bit about both. And just in terms of the international dimension, you know, we are not alone in thinking about cybersecurity. Part of my international role is to go out and talk to institutions worldwide about, you know, how would they like to partner with Manchester Metropolitan University as an institution. It won't surprise you to know that one of the hot areas of interest is cybersecurity, and in April of this year we will be validating a course, an MSc in cybersecurity, to be delivered in Hong Kong with our partner in Hong Kong. Why is that happening? Well, it's happening because the threat in Hong Kong is great. The report in the South China Daily Post, which is a newspaper in Hong Kong, reported in 2016 that there was a 5-fold increase in cyber attacks in Hong Kong. So cyber is global. You know, that's something that we are all aware of, and it's not the only partnership as well that we're involved in developing with cyber. One of my other roles is working with the professors and heads of computing, and we're seeing a massive increase as well in development of educational opportunities for cybersecurity. Whether we're talking about undergraduate courses, master's courses, or indeed degree apprenticeships, there is significant growth in all of those areas. We are running a degree apprenticeship in digital and technology solutions. One of the pathways there is in cybersecurity, and we're not alone in doing that. So, you know, there is a lot of activity going on, and we've got a small select group, and as I'm sure you've been reassured throughout the day, you are doing the right thing, okay? And I'll be stressing that as we go through. Okay, so just to mention a little bit about the Greater Manchester landscape, and we normally, when we host events in Manchester, we get a lot of people from Manchester and the Northwest come along to it, and our what we find with graduates from across Greater Manchester, they often want to stay in and around Greater Manchester because it's a great place to be. For those of you who've come a distance. the stat at the bottom, for example, is one of the drivers for the increase in digital activity that's happening in Manchester. The operating costs are 40% lower here, and we're finding the level of inward investment really quite significant. So Manchester is aiming to be a very strong digital city. It's got the home to the largest digital cluster outside of London. Some of the things that you'll be aware of, things like the Media City, where the BBC is, but also there's the Sharp project and the Landing, which are both areas which have got startup involved in it. And the level of investment is very significant. So 4.1 billion gross value added. That's a measure of how much goods and services are produced, and that's coming from the digital sector. So it really is a buzzing activity. Other things that I haven't put on there, in fact, are things like the City Verve project, which you may not be aware of, where this is putting forward Manchester as the Internet of Things demonstrator city. So a lot of, it's a government-funded project again, and there are a lot of innovative projects that are applications of the Internet of Things that relate to the government and transport in particular, and some of the major partners like Cisco, BT are involved in that. That's something that already exists, but the aspiration is to continue along those lines. So, for example, Manchester is bidding for the Digital Challenge Fund to be the 5G demonstrator city, and I think all of these things throw up challenges for cybersecurity. 5G is the next generation of mobile phone. The increase of speed and reduction in latency is going to produce a whole new set of applications. If you think of things like unmanned vehicles that are going along that rely on that sort of technology, we're hoping to bring that to Manchester. So, anybody know who that is? Andy Burnham. So Andy Burnham is the Mayor of Greater Manchester, and he is leading the aspiration for Greater Manchester to be a world-leading digital city, and we'll take an open and innovative approach to achieving that vision. And what he's done to support and deliver that is to set up some digital summits, bringing together leaders in Greater Manchester of the digital world. He's tasked the IT director to look at different strands that go from technical infrastructure through to things like inclusivity, because I think there's a recognition that if you're going to be a leading digital city, you've got to bring people along with you. So this is very much a strategic project for the Greater Manchester region. It's not the only thing he's doing. You're probably aware of some of the things he's doing around homelessness and youth, but it is a major strand of thinking that Andy Burnham is bringing forward. Because I think one thing that we know, if you're going to actually achieve in this space, you've got to be very deliberate about it. So there is resource being put in, but more importantly, I think it's bringing people together to actually try and shape and direct that approach. So I think we're going to see increasingly the different strands of the Greater Manchester community coming together to build on this vision. And the aspiration, as I said, is for Manchester to be a top 5 city. So where does this leave us with cybersecurity? All of these developments, whether we're talking about the Internet of Things or 5G, throw up new sets of challenges for cyber protection. The more we become reliant on the technology, the more we need protection from it. So there are there's a very significant amount of work that's being done to make sure that there's civil defence as well as obviously the commercial protection that's needed to create that infrastructure so that Manchester can move forward in terms of its economic aspiration. So just to talk about some of the specifics then, there is, in terms of cyber security, there will be a Greater Manchester Cyber Innovation Centre. It's going to be located in central Manchester. The funding has already been committed, and it's going to be a melting pot to effectively mentor, to provide a space where industry and academia can meet, exploring innovative approaches. But I think the prime aim is to ensure that the Greater Manchester, I shouldn't just say Manchester because this is a combined authority covering a population of 3 million or so, is going to be well supported by a particular group. Interestingly as well, the idea is to bring together industry and academia. So the universities are committed to supporting this, and the major companies that have already committed resource and support as well to populate this. The idea behind it is to accelerate the development of cyber support for industry, create a larger talent pool as well. An explicit aim within the group is to support outreach, to create the talent that goes into cybersecurity. I'm sure throughout the day the talent pipeline has been very much discussed, and this is, if you like, an additional means by which we can develop and promote the number of people who are going to be working within our discipline. So another important piece of work that's under development, we can't say it's happened as yet. The Cyber Innovation Centre, that is happening, and we'll see the launch of that later this year. But we're working as well, the Greater Manchester Universities, with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority and other agencies on a project to support SMEs. SMEs are seen very much as the driver of innovation, very well supported by the government to achieve that. We have bid for European Regional Development funding to create a group that will provide targeted support to SMEs to help innovate in cybersecurity. Now, the way in which this works is through quite a well-defined process of identify business support, bringing in SMEs to do some assessment, some health check in terms of where they are on the cyber development, and using that as a way of identifying what sort of needs, where the innovation can occur. And explicitly we will be bringing in together 4 universities, that's Manchester Metropolitan University, University of Manchester, Lancaster and Salford, working together, drawing on the different cyber expertise from those different groups so that we can provide targeted support to SMEs, both specialist cyber SMEs and also those who have a high degree of reliance on cybersecurity. And it's and local government, and we are hopeful that we will receive some support from that project, whilst we still are able to access European Union funding, of course. I think it's a good example of where universities can bring research and work in a translational way to get the knowledge transfer out to companies quickly. So one of our hopes is that You know, people in your position, you know, as students, when it comes to the period when you're looking for jobs, many of you I know will already be sorted, there are opportunities to take on these roles which will be knowledge transfer roles, and you will be the people appointed to these roles will be registered for PhDs as well. So, you know, there's really quite a lot of good work to be done there, we believe. I said that, you know, the developments within Greater Manchester won't happen without some deliberate, concerted, strategic work. So the combined authority, Greater Manchester Combined Authority, is working with the inward investment arm of Manchester to attract companies in high-tech areas. So we're particularly targeting cyber companies, and there is already evidence that is working. The objective is for Manchester to be a hotspot for cybersecurity, and it's interesting talking to Amanda and colleagues that I think there's already some evidence that, you know, the companies, large and small, are clustering around Manchester. This isn't meant to be an advert for Manchester, of course, but it's a recognition that, you know, that if you're going to set up an area which is going to thrive, you've got to be deliberate about it. So the connection with Midas, the Inward Investment Group in Manchester, is very important to developing that and moving it forward. Okay, so a lot going on locally. But I said I was going to talk a little bit about the international dimension. Anybody know what that is? Apart from being a map of the world with bits of red on it. Okay, it's a bit of a random question, but it's actually where the impact of the initial impact of the WannaCry ransomware malware. That was the initial reach of the WannaCry worm. So, just looking at that, you can see that if we're talking about cyber threats, they're not local. They're by definition international. And okay, the WannaCry malware was a vulnerability of an old versions of Windows operating system, but you can see the sort of impact that it can have. Anybody got any idea of what the estimated cost of the WannaCry? Probably some of you will be aware that the vulnerability was actually exploited by the National Security Agency in the States. So they were aware of it and made use of it for offensive purposes, you know, looking, you know, for their own end. So there was a temporary fix by Marcus Hutchins, who identified the kill switch and prevented the spread of it. The patch that was produced by Microsoft in the US and spread out, and the source of the WannaCry is thought to be North Korea. That's what the US said, and it's been supported by the UK government as being the likely source. So really we're talking about an international dimension. So you can't work in a way in cybersecurity just in the UK. It's an international, there's an international dimension to it. I think the other thing I would say, it's not on my slide, but yeah, if you're looking to the future, the uses that we're going to see of technology, you know, we are actually only seeing really quite a limited exposure to it at the moment. At the digital summit that was put on by Andy Burnham in December, we had a presentation from an MP from Estonia, which is quite interesting. I don't know if many of you know about what goes on in Estonia. They have put their local government and national government is highly reliant on technology. So their voting systems are electronic. The way they manage their local government is electronic. The infrastructure is that effectively runs the country is based around technology. You know, it's quite a distributed country, and we are really only scratching the surface in terms of making use of e-government systems. And I think we're going to see a much greater reliance in it. The sorts of systems that you will be working on, and you know, the technology you'll be working on, you know, we still don't really know quite what it will be. Other than the fact the move towards greater reliance it seems to be you know, really quite pervasive. So, as I said, you are absolutely in the right place. I think we will see more of that international influence come through in terms of, you know, one of the reasons why we had the presentation from the MP from Estonia, who happened to be extremely funny as well. So that helped. But you know, we are yet to see the full implications of our reliance on technology, and with that will come really a massive demand in terms of cybersecurity support. I was actually, it was very good to hear the introduction in the morning that said, you know, we're looking at cybersecurity specialists at one level, but you know, the need, the demand for support for cybersecurity goes beyond just purely the technical, and I think, you know, that again will be important for us. So, your discipline needs you. Go out there. The opportunities abound. As I said, you know, whether I, you know, I've talked quite a lot about Manchester, but I could have talked about when I go to China and talk about international partnerships, the knowledge and the expertise in things like cyber physical systems for Industry 4.0, which is really gathering pace to improve the productivity of systems. You know, that's well established in China in research areas. So, you know, we really are seeing the need, whether it's industry or whether it's research or whether it's you know, local to Manchester, Greater Manchester, or indeed international, then the demand is there. And what's more, it's really interesting too. So thank you very much for listening. That's all I've got to say, and the very best of luck in your careers in cybersecurity. Thank you.
So, has anybody got any questions for Keith? I mean, it's so interesting to hear about things moving away from London, because I've got a big thing about things always being in London. But I think also the point that you make about this global economy that we live in is wonderful. And it's great to know that after Brexit we can still talk to people beyond the UK. So that's fantastic. So, Gurbir.
Thanks very much, Keith. Very interesting. It's the first time I've heard of the Cyber Information Centre coming on. What's the timeline for that?
Well, I can't be definite about it. The reason being is that we've got some additional groups that want to work within it. What I can tell you that the physical space is near St. Peter's Square. The building is being commissioned, and we absolutely will want to promote it as widely as possible, get as much involvement. In fact, you can get involved in terms of finding out and participating from now, but there will be a launch event planned once we've got some of the hosting agreed. It's going to be delivered by the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, so if you like, they're the people driving it.
So when you say the building's been commissioned, does that mean the building's been built?
The building exists, but it's got to be repurposed.
So we're talking about this next year?
It could be later this year. We were expecting it to be, well, with the way of these things, a summer launch, but it's been put back. Danny?
Can I just say, one of the reasons why you have to be vague on that is because they had a picture of what it was going to be, and it turns out they needed to be bigger, so they haven't actually expanded it already.
And it's partly it's the partner. It's not confirmed who are driving it. That's the reason for being vague. But as I said, the building is the physical building is there. The money allocated to repurpose it is ring fenced, so it will happen.
Right. Okay. Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for turning up in what's not the warmest of days. I left Kent this morning in 4 inches of snow and a 3-mile walk to find a station open. So if I can make it and you can make it, where's everybody else? But anyway, right. So today I'm going to give you an introduction into how to find your dream job in cyber. I'm from Ncc Group, as you've already heard, and today I'm going to use Ncc Group as the vehicle to hopefully show you how you can land your dream job. So first of all, a bit about Ncc Group. It is a Manchester-based company. The headquarters is in Spitingfield. It was in Oxford Road until last year when we had to relocate. We are approximately 2,500 employees, the majority in the UK. We have over 15,000 companies that we work with and for globally, not just in the UK, and we've got somewhere around 35 offices around the globe as well, 8 of those in the UK. I work in the penetration testing team in Ncc Group, so we have a great time. And there's probably 300 of us in the UK. Okay, so that gives you a bit of an idea of what Ncc Group is. Our people. We are a people business at the end of the day, okay? We are penetration testers, we are incident response handlers, we are software testers, but at the end of the day, we are people with skills and knowledge that the company uses, okay? So the people in our business are extremely important. Without them, we couldn't do what we do as a business. We've got one of the largest consulting teams in the world. Probably penetration testing, certainly the largest in Europe, probably the largest in the world as well, okay? So that gives you some idea, and it's a people business. We could not do that without them. So, give you an idea, penetration testing sits in the technical security consulting business. Hopefully you can read at least most of that slide. But we do everything from cyber security training. So we go out and we show companies, tell companies how they can improve their overall cyber security knowledge internally, improve the skills and experience of the people that have got those roles in those companies based on what we see out there in the industry, okay? We do application security. So it's all very well you developing an application, you want it to do certain things. Quite a lot of companies do that without really taking security into effect, okay? So you create a product, you create an application, you get it to do something. That's what it's there for. Okay, a pen tester looks at it and says, I don't care what can it do, but what can it do that it shouldn't? Okay, so we're looking at it from totally the other angle. So we're going to help those companies who develop those programs, develop those applications, to develop them securely so that they don't get broken by people like us or the bad boys that are out there trying to do it on a regular basis. We do things like remote working. So you're a remote home-based worker. Okay, you're going to connect into your company to do your work from home. Well, in theory, if you can do that, so can I. Okay, so we're going to try and make sure that only the people that should connect to that network from remote can actually do so. Okay, online banking. We're all now doing online banking from our phones and various other bits and pieces. So we've had to security test that to make sure that actually you're doing it securely and that somebody else isn't trying to break in. Okay. IoT, you've heard about IoT a few times already. The Internet of Things is the next big thing in the industry. So if you can park your car remotely with a handheld thing standing outside it, what's stopping me from driving it away? Okay, so that's the mentality of the penetration tester that will try and prove that what you've done can be done by somebody else with not necessarily good intentions. Okay, so all of that kind of thing is what we do in Ncc Group in the technical security consulting team. So really 5 areas of the business. We've got cyber defense, which looks at post incidents, so incident response, forensics analysis, malware analysis, all of those kind of things. Okay, so they're looking at it from the defensive side, whereas my team, the pen testing team, is looking at it from the attacker's side. Okay, so that's another team in the business. We've got software testing and development. So we'll look at software products that are being created to make sure they're being created securely and help the owners of those products to remediate any issues that we might find. We have website performance monitoring. Okay, nobody likes a slow website, so we provide website performance monitoring to try and help you speed up the user experience when you visit a particular website. Okay, so that's just a few of the different business units that we've got in Ncc Group, and they're all complementary. Okay, yes, we've got our own projects that we work on, but there are some companies that need us to do a bigger project, and that's when all the teams join together and they're a bit more joined up in terms of what they need to cover for a particular reason. Okay. So somebody asked me the other day in terms of what do you think is the future of cybersecurity. So put a few of them up here. Some of them you've probably already heard of today even. The first one is IoT. Okay, everybody now is starting to think about, you know, my washing machine needs to be connected to the internet, my fridge needs to be connected to the internet, my baby's toy dolls need to be connected to the internet. Okay, lots of different things now are connected to the internet for a variety of reasons. Okay, do they need to be? Are they secure? Is there a standard that the industry is using to introduce those products into the future of cyber? Probably not. It's a very immature market at the moment. Lots of companies are using this new market to get new products out there, but not necessarily thinking about the security implications of those. There's been a few programs on TV not too long ago where they used somebody's toy doll. And actually there's a camera on the toy doll, and they used that camera to track the family around that house using that toy doll. Okay? Your internet-enabled TV, it's got a camera on it. Okay? What's stopping somebody hacking that TV, hacking that camera, and watching you around the house? Okay? There's lots of products that are out there that can be used in not so good ways, as well as what the industry is trying to get us to use them for in terms of making our lives easier. Okay? So IoT will be something that is growing and will continue to grow. Next one is biometrics. So facial recognition, fingerprint recognitions, those kind of things, they believe in the future will take over from your passwords. Okay? You won't be having to remember 25 million passwords that are all different for different websites that you go on. You'll be using biometrics. Okay? And that's the way to go. So we're going to be looking for people with skills and technology experience in helping the industry move biometrics into the future and become more mainstream instead of those passwords. Okay. Next one, blockchain and distrusted ledger techniques, which my research director said to me, oh, you've got to put that one in. That's going to be one of the biggest things coming up. Again, it's around cryptography. And again, we're looking for people that have got that kind of interest in the industry. And so you don't necessarily need to have a computer science degree to start thinking about cryptography. One of the current graduates on my program, for example, did maths at Southampton University, loves cryptography. And wanted to join the security industry. She's now a pen tester with great crypto skills that we can use in many different areas. Okay, so again, that's another area that we see a lot of business potentially happening in the future. Containerization, so virtualization as well, the way in the future. Okay, virtualizing all those current servers that are out there in data centers. Virtualization is the way forward. Okay, that in itself will increase security risks, because if you compromise that container, you compromise everything. Okay, instead of a whole bunch of different servers. So again, having experience in virtualization and containerization through university may give you a good start into a career in cyber. And then machine learning and artificial intelligence. I'm already seeing, probably in the 12 universities I go around in the UK currently, quite a number of universities already looking at machine learning especially. Artificial intelligence is becoming more and more popular on the curriculums as well. Okay, so that gives you a flavour of some of the skills and areas that cyber is moving into and that we'll be looking for as employers, people with those kind of skills and knowledge. Okay, so I do a number of interviews of various people who want to be potential pen testers. And the next few slides just give you an idea of how we in Ncc Group view recruitment, what we do in our interviews, and the kind of people that we're looking for and how they come across. So the first one, qualifications. Everybody seems to be hanging their life on qualifications. Yes, okay, qualifications mean something. If you're going through university, you get those qualifications, they will be with you for the rest of your life. As time moves on, those qualifications from university will become less relevant, and qualifications you gain in the industry will be more relevant. Okay, so whilst it might be you're going through university now, for example, start thinking about what qualifications you might need in your time if you're going to join the cybersecurity industry. Okay, and there are a number of qualifications out there that could help. So in pen testing, for example, I had a conversation next door just a few minutes ago. There's something called the Certified Ethical Hacker. There's something called OSCP, the Offensive Security Certified Professional. Okay, a number of qualifications that are industry recognised, which would be worth investigating if you're going to go into that kind of area of our industry. And there will be others. The skills that you already have. Okay, currently on my graduate program, I have a second-hand car salesman, somebody who did accounting and finance, and somebody who didn't go to college for various reasons. So they don't have their university degrees. Okay, they have come with a degree, a level of knowledge and user personal experience. They have an interest in IT. They're willing to learn. Okay, so it's not necessarily the different qualifications, it's the skills they've picked up along the way, self-development and self-learning that's got them to where they are. Okay, and that's what you need to think about as well. Yeah, how do you keep yourself up to date? Yeah, the cyber security industry is always changing. New technologies, new security risks, new methods of doing different things. So, you know, not everybody knows everything in our industry, and that's one of the great things. So knowledge sharing, doing your research, keeping yourself up to date with what's going on are certainly things that you need to do when you are in the industry. And being able to show that in your interview, for example, is worth a great deal. Programming knowledge is now a high priority for a lot of people. Okay, you can't do much without it in the industry nowadays. We teach it for those that join Ncc Group through our graduate program. If they don't have that skill, we'll teach them. It's an important one that they will need to pick up at some stage. Not just Windows. So, you know, nowadays there's lots of different flavors of operating systems out there. not just Windows, okay? And you'll come across that if you join NCC Group, our different training platforms, the different tests that you will do, live tests on different operating systems. Okay, so again, it's having the variety of that background that will help you in your job. Aptitude for learning and new skills. So I've already alluded to not everybody knows everything, and that will always be the case in cybersecurity. Okay, so having the aptitude to pick up new skills, the desire to pick up new skills, to help other people learn new skills is what it's about in our industry. Okay, and last week, good example. So we've got a graduate program at the moment with 5 people on it, and last week one of those graduates was showing a principal consultant, so that's the most senior technical consultant in our company, how to do something. Okay, so he's been at university 6 months, showing somebody who's been in the industry 17 years how to do something. Okay, that's the kind of industry that we're in. Not everybody knows everything. As long as you're happy to accept that and to accept the fact that you will learn from others and they will learn from you, that's what this industry is about. Okay. Employability, again, do you specialise the minute you enter the industry? Do you keep yourself broad? Learn lots of different things, perhaps not to the same depth, but 2 different ways of thinking about it. I would say, certainly from our experience in NCC Group, keep yourself broad until you find something that you really like and then specialise. Okay? So the longer that you're in the industry, then you'll find something that you particularly like and then you can start specialising in it. And you can become then a subject matter expert. But before you can do that, you need to have an understanding of all the different options that are out there in the industry. So stay broad to start with, and then think about specialising a bit further down the road. Okay, so moving on to the candidates that comes into NCC Group, and a little bit about the interviews and what we do and do not do. Okay, so first of all, we'll ask a whole bunch of questions. So the interviews in NCC Group are in 2 parts. The first part, we're going to go through, ask you a bunch of questions about your experience, about your skills, about your CV, and that's what this first slide covers. So trying to find out, what you like, what you don't like, what makes you tick, why are you looking for a job in NCC Group? What do you like doing in your current role? What you don't like doing in your current role? Okay, those are the kind of things that we're looking for. Your communication skills, okay? Pen testers have a reputation for wanting to be locked in a dark room, in a cupboard somewhere, with a laptop, doing a pen test, and you let them out at the end, okay? Actually, what you need to do is write a report and tell somebody what you've done with that pen test at the end of it. So you need those communication skills. You need those interpersonal skills, okay? To be able to tell somebody what you've done, what you found, what they need to fix, and why they need to fix it. So you need to be able to hold a conversation with people who may not appreciate what you've just done, okay? In other words, you've given them a bunch of problems, okay? So those kind of things. Motivation, okay? So you might be straight out of university, you might not have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, but what motivates you to want to be successful in the industry? Give us some examples. You perhaps don't have those examples because you've not been in the industry, but give us other examples that you might feel are relevant, okay? So give us some ideas of what you've been able to achieve in your personal life, for example, that can give us an idea of your kind of motivation to want to progress. Initiative, okay, where you've gone over and above what's expected of you on a particular job, how you've overcome difficulties, how you've managed to pull something out of the bag when it looks as though it's going pear-shaped. Those kind of things that we're looking for. Technical skills, okay, you may not have experience in the industry, you may have come straight from university, but what do you think you are particularly good at? What do you think is relevant to the role that you're applying for? Okay, those kind of things that we're interested in finding out. And then I mentioned the 2 parts. So the second part of the interview is a hands-on technical assessment. Okay, so not many techies I know like sitting there in an interview with a suit and a tie, trying to answer 100 questions. Okay, most techies I know would rather sit behind a keyboard in front of a lab, doing a pen test, showing you what they can do. Okay? And that's what the second part of our interview process is. A hands-on technical lab. They're sat in front of a laptop, and they will work through a pen test in a lab environment. Okay? It's not a pass or fail test. Okay? That's the key thing. It's not a pass or fail. What it does, it gives us the ability to see what you know, what you can do, what additional training we might need to give you if we were to employ you, how quickly you can pick things up for things that you don't know, your aptitude for learning. Okay? So that's the reasons we put you through that hands-on test. Okay? And it gives you also an idea of what you'll be doing on a daily basis if you are successful in joining Ncc Group. Okay? So hands-on test, most techies would prefer that than me asking them 100 questions and them having to sit there and think up an answer. Okay, so moving into a few of the different roles we've got in Ncc Group and what we're looking for in those interviews. So penetration testing, as already mentioned, here's the type of work that we do on a regular basis. And you'll find that some of them are repeatable. So there might be a web application test this week, a web application test next week. The chances are it will be 2 different customers, 2 different technologies, 2 different programming languages, 2 different ways of actually attacking that application. Okay? So the variety is always there. Might be a web app one week, a web app next week, but the background and the target and what you're going to do could be different. Okay? So variety is there. Network and infrastructure tests could be over the internet from an Ncc Group office. It could be internally within a client's facilities. So we'll go into one of their offices, plug into the network, see what you can do. Okay? So it depends on what the scope is from the customer, depends on the type of things that we will do. And then social engineering seems to be a popular one at the moment, or red teaming, or black teaming, or purple teaming as it now comes out as well. Lots of different ways of doing social engineering. Okay, some of it is just purely social engineering using the human side of a company. So we'll pretend we're like we did somebody from Domino's Pizza. We pretended to be last week and got into a building to deliver fake pizzas. Found a meeting room, plugged in a laptop into a spare network port somewhere, and within 10 minutes we were on a network. Okay. Social engineering our way into a company and then trying to break into their networks. So social engineering, again, using the human factor to help us then move into the cyber side as well. So lots of different things we can do there. Research, we give you research time. Okay, so when you're not on a client project, doing a penetration test, we would expect you to do research. 2 ways of doing research. That's either we can give you a subject to go away and do research on, or you tell us a subject that you would like to do research on. Okay? And if your ideas around research are good, we will give you additional time off of client testing to actually do that research. Okay? And in the past, some of that research has led to really good things for Ncc Group and for the industry as a whole. So a couple of years ago, 2 of the guys in one of our teams had an idea about a phishing platform. Okay, so they went a day away, did some research, put together an idea for a product. We now sell that product. Okay, and they are doing quite well from it as well. Okay, so that's the kind of ideas that you can come up with in terms of research. The research you can come up with can also lead to you going anywhere around the world to deliver presentations about your research at industry conferences. Okay, so again, lots of different ways to impart your knowledge and your skills to the rest of the industry as well. Cyber defence, I've mentioned it a few times, so I don't know if you've ever watched The Hunted, the programme on TV, where a whole bunch of celebrities recently were trying to escape being captured. So all these super people that were trying to track down all these people trying to escape, 3 of those people were from Ncc Group. Okay, so we're using our cyber defence skills, our forensic skills, to actually track those people. So that's the glamorous side of what they do. But in real life, they will do an investigation into a hack, into a breach of somebody's network, into anything that's loss, malware analysis, you heard of WannaCry earlier on, various other security issues that come up in the industry, they will get involved in those as well. Okay, so this is the defensive side of NCC Group. Having an understanding and a knowledge of the attacking side will also help them in their work. So some of the people in those teams are from previously penetration testing. Okay, they've used those skills and their knowledge from the attacking side. They're now working the defensive side. Okay, and vice versa. We've got one guy currently going through the grad program who's got a forensics background. He wants to use the defensive side of his skills and his knowledge to help him be successful in penetration testing. Okay, so the two can work as complementary. Managed Services is another team within NCC Group. So Managed Services is automated vulnerability scanning, for example. So a lot of companies require perhaps monthly or weekly scans on their network to make sure nothing has changed, to make sure nothing malicious has been introduced into the networks. So they will do something called a Managed Services vulnerability scan. Okay, so a number of people that have gone into this role then naturally progress into a penetration testing role, perhaps in a year or two further down the road, once they've established themselves in a career. Development team. So this is where the coding skills come into effect, which I mentioned earlier on. So they will be looking at website performance monitoring, internal systems as well in terms of software development. So having a good background in application security, in programming, that kind of thing would be good for this team. Okay. Software testing, again, another smaller team within NCC Group, but again, we're looking at people who've got an understanding of software development lifecycle, for example. Okay, again, it's something that we use even in the penetration testing team, software development lifecycle activities in some of the bigger projects that we have. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of potentially your dream job. Hopefully something there has found your liking. We run a regular internal recruitment process within NCC Group. We have the graduate program. It's not just for graduates, as I've mentioned. I currently have 5 people who are certainly in second careers as opposed to just finishing at university. So it's a training program. We call it the Grad Program because most of them are recent graduates, okay? But certainly the 35-year-old second-hand car salesman is definitely not a recent graduate, okay? And he's doing quite well, okay? So we have an online challenge. For those of you that might be interested, the Ninja Challenge, you can register and work your way through that challenge. If you get all the way through, you're guaranteed a job interview, okay? Last year we had 900 people register for the challenge. Not sure how many we've got this year so far, but it's certainly doable, okay? And it gives you an idea of what you could potentially be doing in NCC Group. And those challenges are being put together by people in my team, okay? Happy to take any questions if you've got any.
So I think a round of applause firstly for Colin.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it's wonderful to see the range of roles that you've got there. I mean, there's really something for pretty much everybody there. And it's also wonderful to see the amount of investment that you put into people. And as people joining the community, that's the sort of organisation that you should be looking to try and join basically, because they will invest in you as people. So that's enough for me. There's loads of questions, so Colin,
okay.
I'll leave you to manage your questions.
Okay, yeah. So the one I mentioned, Piranha, belongs to the company. The 2 people that created it get a commission from it. Okay, so they're not doing too badly. Okay, but yes, it is company property. It's company time. You will sign your life away to say that it is company property in terms of what you develop, but you could see the benefits from it. Okay.
Colin,
Yes.
when do the challenges go live?
We used to run a challenge twice a year, but this year, well, back in December, we put the current challenge live, and we're going to keep it live for a year. Okay, so you can register at any time. You can work your way through it in your own speed, at your own pace, and we keep a regular watch on your progress. And once you get to the end, and we're looking for people, we'll invite you in for an interview. Okay, not everybody will get all the way through. Simple as that. So all I would say is don't let that put you off. Continue your way through the challenge as best you can, because 2 years ago we didn't have enough people finish the challenge, so we went down to the next level, then the next level, then the next level. Okay, so do your best is the theme. Okay. Yes. It is, well, sorry. The grad program runs twice per year, the penetration testing one anyway, which is the one I run, starts in March and in September. The larger batch is in September each year, okay? And we've now been running it for 5 years. In that 5 years, only 3 people have failed, okay? The graduate program is run from the UK offices currently. We may be running it from our Spanish office in the future, but that's not been agreed yet. Okay. Yes.
Not just Windows, but Linux as well.
Yes. So we are seeing more of it. It depends really from customer to customer and more about the type of customer they are. So, for example, a few multimedia companies are more likely to use a Mac than perhaps a bank, for example. So it does. We are seeing quite a lot of online banking, and therefore iOS devices, for example. We're seeing quite a bit of that coming through as well. So, if you haven't got those skills and that experience, you can't work on those projects. So again, keeping yourself broad, having a bit more than one string to your bow, kind of thing, gives you the flexibility to work on lots of different things.
Here today to discuss, look at, learn about, plan, some of us look back on maybe, and benchmark cybersecurity careers. So actually on this panel, we've actually got a terrific selection of people who you should keep in contact with and observe and listen to today, because we span so many different areas of it. We've got Kat here who's actually on the implementation side, doing stuff, putting machinery together, which needs to be done obviously in a safe and secure way. We've got Sean looking at the consultancy side in terms of professionalism. We've got Amanda running out of steam here. We've got myself, who's supposed to be the respectable academic, you can just tell. And at the end of the table, we've got Stuart, actually from the Cybersecurity Challenge, who's into developing and finding the talent. And he didn't hit me just before when I described him as the child catcher. So that was quite nice. So to start with, rather than just you get this brief overview, I'd like each of the panel, and of course we'll start at the end, just for ease of my sake, because if I start kind of dotting around the table, I will lose track. So if we start and work our way down the table, jumping me to Amanda afterwards, just a little bit from each of the panel, think about what they're saying, think about what you can ask them, and there is a threat, because if you don't ask them questions, they will ask you.
Hate microphones, hate them with a passion. My name is Stuart Coulson from Cybersecurity Challenge. Too many years being on the other side of the coin, being a sales guy, making data centers. I've done all sorts of stuff as a job, and I now help people get jobs in cybersecurity. And I'm really passionate about helping every single person in this room find that bit of cybersecurity that interests them. I've had quite a few conversations today with people, and they just don't know which bit of cyber is theirs. Are you forensics? Are you malware? Are you social engineer? Are you a pen tester? Are you IoT? Are you cloud? Which bit are you? I think for me, that's the bit I enjoy most, because I like seeing that bit, you know, in your eyes kind of go, oh, yeah, I like that bit. That's kind of why it kind of makes me get up in the morning. And it's quite an honour to be sat on a panel with these people, because we are from a really varied background, but I kind of cross all of them. So I have got a lot of questions for you, so please ask us first, because otherwise I'll be going around everyone in the room saying, what's your bit of cyber? Where do you click in? What are you going to do next?
Is this even working? No. Can you hear me now? I've for about 5 or 6 years. I was previously 20 years in the military, worked for government agencies, not doing cyber, but intelligence, threat, operational risk, that sort of thing. I think that was a great stepping stone into what I do now with regard to consultancy in the north, KPMG, Manchester and Liverpool. I'm not technical at all. Every day I have to sort of get my guys to say, what are you talking about, mate? I don't understand that. Put it into some sort of plain English, because that guy there's got some money and he needs some help. And he doesn't understand a word you're talking about. So turn your hobby into something useful for that business, and therefore, you know, maybe that business's customers and clients, etc. So, you know, I am a consultant. Part of my job is to translate what some of the geeks are saying, the guys who've got the real passion for the various types of branches and specialisms in cyber, and then translate and communicate with the guys who've probably got a bit of a problem, need to improve, or are under a lot of pressure from regulations or customers to do better around security, compliance, etc., etc. So hopefully I'll be a little bit different from some of the other panelists today, and I'll try and give a non-tech, real life, what people need from the brains and the future of the industry, and therefore how you can maybe try and start moulding yourselves into what's probably needed out there in the sector and the industry itself.
Thanks. So, hi everyone, I'm Kat Stebbings from UK Clouds. We are a cloud solutions provider based down in Farnborough in Hampshire. I'm actually speaking later this afternoon, so I'll do a bit of a company introduction in that session, talking about women in tech shortly following this. So my background, essentially, all of my working career has been in tech, been in telecoms industry, straight out kind of tech companies, from small startups to large kind of corporates as well. So varied background, held all sorts of different roles in that. Nothing that I would describe as a single sort of out-and-out tech role. Very much like you, have been kind of supporting those that work in tech and being an interface directly between the, you know, what I would call the uber techs and those that have kind of the business need as well. So background and skills are kind of in translating those requirements into something we can actually kind of build and deliver. Lots of kind of strong focus in the kind of project management side. In terms of the company itself, we do kind of security by design. It's intrinsically in everything that we do. The kind of data that we hold for companies, the kind of insights, and honestly the things that could go wrong if that data is unavailable, either through a fault of our own, or whether it's been hacked or compromised in some way. So security is really in the blood of everything that we do. Hence why I'm very happy to be here today and sat on a panel and understanding where you guys are and what you want to get out of the industry, and equally what you can bring.
Thank you. And
Right. Oh dear, not the boss, not today. My name's Amanda Finch. I'm the General Manager of the IISP, the Institute of Information Security Professionals, your professional body. My background is varied, basically. I think I probably describe myself as a generalist. The majority of my career was spent at Marks & Spencer, where I started off on the commercial side, and there's a bit of a pattern forming here. I ended up by mistake in the IT group, and ended up staying there because I found it vaguely interesting. And then they asked me to help set up the computer security function, to which my answer was, "What's that?" And my exec said, "We have no idea, but we've been told we've got to do it, and you like doing new stuff." So I thought that was going to be another project for 2 or 3 years, something like that. But I sort of liked it. And it was very, very different then. It's gone from computer security back in the early 90s to network security, information security. It's now called cyber security. You hear digital security, and it might be a fluffy bunny rabbit security in another 5 years' time. It keeps evolving. And that's the thing that's always fascinated me about this profession, is that it's always different. I've never got bored. I get quite easily bored, but I have never got bored with this job because it's always changed. And again, a theme emerging. I didn't duck quick enough when they said, would you look after the IISP for a little bit? And that was 6 years ago. And so, again, I'm doing this because I find it really interesting, and it's a privilege to be turning our profession into a proper recognised profession. And we're in the middle of trying to achieve Royal Charter status for the profession at the moment. So it's been a lot of fun.
Right. So you now know who's in front of you to a reasonable degree. Of course, this is a security event, so somebody might have been lying, but it's not that kind of quiz. But I would like you to kick things off. And if not, because I know some of you by name, I shall ask you to ask the questions. So who would like to take advantage? Because this is great. This is what is actually needed so much in our industry, is people to keep talking. Is to make sure that we don't have barriers between class, gender, culture, etc., etc. Because you've got to remember that we are here because there's a lot of bad people who want to do bad stuff. And hey, guess what? They don't care about where people come from and what they do. They just want to rip people off and do bad stuff with the stuff that we want to protect and make resilient. So who's going to be first? Who's going to step up to the mark? Gurbir. I'm glad it was Gurbir, because I was going to name him and shame him anyway. But there's no shame, actually. It's a privilege to know him.
Yeah, I thought I'd step up before I was picked. Just a general question. One of the many themes and terms for you, and one of them is cryptocurrency. Mechanism to use in applications. So my question is technology kind of cryptocurrency, have you seen anybody in the scene that you use other actual real life?
Right, who wants to start with that one?
No.
Right. That was an easy answer.
There is an academic, so I have to be careful on how I evidence this one. Certainly feel free to the academic on the panel to search on Google for that first house that was bought in America using bitcoins. So this is a person who sold their house, and the unfortunate thing was the price ditched. So they sold their house for however many bitcoins, and overnight that bitcoin price ditched. So they've ended up losing, I think it was $100 and something thousand off the value of their property during the actual sale of the house going through. So I think there's a much wider debate on cryptocurrency. Should it be there? How are we going to even do something useful with this thing apart from allow it to be a criminal currency? I personally have bitcoins. I have Ethereum. I have various cryptocurrencies. Why have I done it? One day it might be bigger than what it is now, and I might make some money. In the same way that most of us get up in the morning and get a job. Why? Because I'm going to make some money and I can pay the mortgage. Cryptocurrency at the moment doesn't have a market space. We are not buying useful stuff through it. Until that rationalizes down, and until people stop copying each other and making their own cryptocurrency this week, it will always be a mishmash and an unstable market. The minute it rationalizes down, we'll see something useful coming out of the cryptocurrency market. That's my own personal belief. We started with Bitcoin. Look how well that did. And now, how many are there on Coinbase right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good example. My question is more to do with the technology behind this
blockchain.
Distributed ledger, open. It's supposed to be able to help with financial transactions, even running democratic processes. Have you seen any of that?
Am I allowed to throw the spanner in a works on a question? Is that allowed? According to GDPR, I have a right to erase you. can you explain how you erase data out of a blockchain? That's a drop the mic situation. Thank you.
You spared some thoughts. Uncertainty, high risk. No, I'm not going to go anywhere near blockchain at the moment, and we're going to wait for it to be completely proven. So I don't think you're going to see anything happen. You're going to be some high risk sort of users and innovators. There'll always be questions around the security and the application and actually how useful is it. But I think we're already seeing, didn't I see some sort of hack on one of the central repositories and the whole price crash on it anyway? It's being discredited all over the place, so high risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, if you go back to the, initial principles, the idea of having a single currency across, everywhere, anyone and anything in the world, that's an appealing concept. I think, putting a data hat on, I'm much more interested in the data that I can use by being able to see where this currency is being spent, stored, saved, all of the potential transactions that fall from that. I have an indication that I think some of the industries that we support, I would expect that there are some incredibly intelligent people who are already looking at that and looking at the wider context of that and how the currency is useful not as being a currency itself, but more of a tracking tool to see what information we can get from it. Also, actually, how that teaches us, what other information is available to us. So how we track and how we monitor it, for me, is far more interesting than the fact that it's a currency itself. It's just something that links multiple things that then perhaps may give us insight into something else. So interesting. Practical applications, there's zero in my market at the moment.
Very cool. Would you like to say something before I go off on one?
Oh, I'm looking forward to hearing you go off and on a tangent. For me, I think it's very much the Wild West with the cryptocurrencies at the moment. And I also feel some sort of analogies with the dot-com market, where at the moment it's not regulated, it's going up and down. It's sort of a bit of a solution trying to find a problem. We've had many of those over the years within the security industry as well. I saw an interesting use of it where somebody was trying to sell, well, she was using it to sell fine art. Very, very expensive paintings to people that probably were laundering their money in order to do so. And I think there's a bit of a legitimacy issue there. But I think longer term, it's interesting, and I think that it will happen and it will become more mainstream. But for me, it's going to be the Wild West until there's some sort of regulation about it. And I'm not sure where that's going to come from, whether that needs to be at a government level or you have to have some really big organisations that are wanting to champion it. And we're not really seeing that at the moment. We're just seeing this very, very immature, fragile, but I think probably good technology.
Okay, you were warned. You were warned. And God, I'm so glad that Gurbir is a friend, and I hope he's still going to be a friend after this. But this is a cybersecurity day, yeah? Okay, blockchain, distributed ledger, cryptocurrency, these are all just kind of applications where security might come into it. They may have applications themselves which are useful to security. But on the whole, on a day like this is not a topic that we should be even touching and talking about. There is so many complexities, so many things that we don't do. I mean, how many people can actually say, I'm assuming that most of the people in this room are actually students. How many people version control their software? How many people actually back up their work properly in the first place? And I mean properly by at least, I'm talking about 3 places, one of them off site. So we've got all of these glitzy tools, yet out there, what people are doing, they're jumping on the next bandwagon, getting all excited, putting it in the same bucket as cybersecurity, where actually with cybersecurity, we're not doing enough of the basics. We're not keeping enough of an eye on the knowledge which we know about and which actually needs to be, I won't say locked down because that always gives the wrong impression, but we need to knuckle down and Bring together the governance and bring together the testers and bring together the designers. Maybe sometimes distributed ledger technology will be a tool that we can use for record keeping. Don't know. Yeah, somebody's going to shut me up. I've got 2 people wanting to shut me up. Fabulous. Love you. Right at the back first.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I've got a basic question here, and it's linked to just what you said. We're still not getting the basic messages out to people about long passwords, about keeping software up to date. And I'd be really interested to know from the panel what they think needs to be done to get those messages out to everybody.
Variety in the messages. Right. Who wants to start? Volunteer.
So I think the government have worked really hard with like cyber hygiene messaging, you know, top 10 and all that good stuff. You got to get past the IT department in big companies and brands. I think individuals are starting to get it, you know, passwords, etc. It's a simple message, phishing emails. But I'm out in the market all the time, and I never assume that I'm going to talk to somebody very sensible at the head of a company. I always assume that he's been ignoring this for a while and that doesn't see it as a real problem or a real threat to the company. And there's plenty of examples out there where companies have been really materially affected, as well as all the psychological effects that we see as well. You know, talk, rippled right through the organisation. So for me, the messages are out there. All the consultancies are singing off the same hymn sheet. You know, cyber hygiene is part of their maturity assessment, their vulnerability assessments. Everyone's selling pen testing and scans and all that good stuff. The government are hitting it from the other side, you know, with the basics, get it right, etc. GCHQ through NCSC are trying to get their message out. But I think boardrooms, where it really does sit and where activity can happen really quickly, have still got their eyes on other things.
So we're in quite a fortunate position at UK Cloud because we are so security aware. We're a relatively small company, about 200 employees at the moment. So actually having that kind of knowledge of things like, and being hot on things like, you know, password management, just kind of comes as standard. It's not a problem, it's just something that we do. I was going to raise, we had one of the seniors in from Cisco, was actually the CEO, who was talking about company education, specifically kind of around this issue came up. And it's still quite a disturbing fact that in any given room of 100 people, you could crack at least one of their accounts just by putting the password in as password, which just really kind of resonated with the Joe blogs, the majority of the population haven't got it at all. So the methods are out there. In terms of what one thing is going to change that, I'm not sure that there is. Generally, it will take a personal issue. Talking from a company perspective, some of the things that we have known are not out-and-out kind of security weaknesses, but things we'd like to be hotter on. It's amazing how quickly they escalate up the agenda when we've had an issue on one of those systems. You know, the same will prevail with individuals in the market. That's my view.
I think it's always been like this, basically, is that the cyber hygiene has always sort of followed. It's like every time we get a new technology, the security gets bolted on afterwards. And I think that a lot of it is that you've got people that are developing systems that really want to give functionality, and the business wants to move forward. And sometimes they don't see the value of implementing good cyber hygiene. And especially coming back to what Kat's saying, it's often a good incident that hones the mind on that. But I think we need to teach our boards to really understand risk better, so that they can understand what it means when something goes wrong, not after it's gone wrong. But it's always going to be that battle of trying to get the cyber hygiene over, because there's always a business reason why the system can't go down for an upgrade, or there's no money to upgrade a legacy system, which is a devil to patch, because it'll bring the rest of the network down, or it'll bring a key application down. And it's really getting the business to understand what it is they're trying to protect and why.
Can I have a turn as it goes past? Excellent. I think this is one of a really good question, actually, for a careers day, because it really highlights the skills, or the variety of skills which is actually needed. Because, let's face it, no matter what we do, there are still going to be lots of people who will do silly things. Now, somebody, was it Sean or Stuart just mentioned about the National Cybersecurity Centre guidance that is published. And actually, some of the best published stuff that they published over the last few months has actually been some stuff about thinking about lateral movement. So yeah, we are going to give out messages, we are going to try and teach people, and actually the Institute is really good on this, because if you look at the skills model for the Institute, you will realise that it recognises that not everybody, apart from a few really clever people who I hate, who can absolutely know everything about everything, that actually you will have your areas of specialisation, you will have areas that you can concentrate on, but you will recognise also have an appreciation of all the other areas too. So you'll know where sort of who you need to call. There used to be the old AA advert. I can't do it myself, but I know somebody who can, and that. Pulling that people in, so people understand that, yeah, actually just a smattering of awareness is important, but actually, okay, we can't afford, I don't know, two-factor authentication, so we've got to really rely on our staff to keep their passwords secret. Hopefully we've now stopped people, or starting to stop people planning to stop insisting that they change them regularly, of course, which makes them not something else to do. I'm really pleased about this, because I've got 9 kids, but I can stop now because I don't need to make up any more passwords because we don't change them so regularly. But it's actually realising, having that kind of team effort, because that also means that you've got your areas of expertise who will appreciate the basics, so you can concentrate the basic messages, but also you can support people, with the alerts and the monitoring and the compromise systems and the segmentation. So we're not just relying on that end user. So this old thing about human error and weakest link and all of that kind of stuff is something we really need to drill out of ourselves, because while we're busy coming up with clever aphorisms or whatever they're called, and I'm probably more guilty than most, of course, like I say, the people who we are up against don't care, and they just go in straight for the jugular.
I'm a dad. I have 3 kids, and at any point you can all say, shame on you. I have 3 daughters, that's even worse. One of them's 14, and she's in secondary school. And cyber hygiene is, for me, possibly one of the most important things. Because at the age of 10, she was being pressured into getting an Instagram account because all my mates have got it. At the age of 11, she had to get a WhatsApp group because, well, that's how we organise what we're going to do over summer. And yet the terms and conditions say you've got to be 13. So straight away I was asking my daughter to break the law of those applications, if you like, just to function in society. However, she went first day of school in secondary school and broke the computer system because her first password was 32 characters long and their system didn't have a maximum, and it bombed the entire systems. The entire intake couldn't log on to any school computer system because everything was broken. Luckily, and this is something which Kat said, security by design. Yes, sure, it had a minimum. You have to have a minimum of 6 characters. No one said maximum, and sure enough, the system couldn't cope. And I'm quite proud that my kids can break computer systems with a password that's too long. And I'm proud of the fact that they go to systems and go, Dad, it's got a maximum of 18 characters, duh. I love that fact that my 9-year-old has a password better than anyone in this room. That's awesome. She doesn't know any of her passwords because she uses a password manager. She's 9 and uses a password manager. Why aren't you? And for me, it's like security by design. It is down to the developers to make a system and go, this should be better than our competitors by making it secure. And it should be down to the businesses to help them support that and go, I would like to make my app to check whether my car insurance is up to date. I want it to be strong, secure, use fingerprint recognition, retina scans and everything. I want it to be enabled for everything, not limited by design. It should be expanded by design. And it's great to have hear that UK Cloud are doing initiatives like security by design. It's built into the actual DNA of the product. And to take the analogy on, the DNA I've just created in 3 children, they will grow up being secure. They are already paranoid about everything to do with the computer. The amount of pop-ups they walk in, Dad, pop-up, what's that mean? I explained to you what a pop-up is, and I explained that this is someone trying to do a malicious attack with an Adobe Flash update, and it's come through the advert there. Well, why did the ad blocker not pick it up, Dad? My 6-year-old is telling me why is the ad blocker not picking it up. That is security built in by design to my kids, and that is something which I think we need to get better at. What was your cybersecurity training like when you joined the universities, your companies, and what was around you? Could you improve it? Would you like to help them with it to make the next layer better?
I'm just going to chip in, and from what I've heard, and I'm just going to try and put a career spin on this. So KPMG, 3 things I want you to know at the moment that spins off that. First of all, we have a grad recruitment scheme, and we're growing. We're taking on double the amount of grads every year. So that says something about the industry, right? Those grads will be expected to go out to junior schools and do Cyber Champions, which is a non-profit voluntary contribution where they talk to year 7, 8 and 9 about cyber hygiene, try and get that awareness started. It's not profitable. It's actually, we use it because it's really good training for grads who come out and don't like speaking in public. Obviously, the schools benefit from that as well, and the kids. And finally, we get equally amount of grads coming to join the cyber scheme who are geography, zoology, history, all sorts of backgrounds, versus I want to be a pen tester. And we've got a big pen testing team. That's great. We know what we're getting with these guys, right? There'll be some challenges with that, but there'll be some great skills as well. However, on the other side, we've got guys who are going to end up being really good at doing management of risk courses or delivering awareness training courses. And for a career in a cybersecurity in the future, my big message from today is we want 50% pen testers, but we also want 50% people that can talk to other people about things as well and really get messages over and change the way that behaviours and cultures are. So there's this sort of tech versus people side, not as clear cut as that. We get some great guys in the middle, and girls. But just keep your mind open if you're bent towards technical pen testing, etc., because there is a whole part of the industry which is driven by the market that is expanding equally as fast.
Straight down the middle, as they say.
With a few of the answers we've heard so far, it almost feels like a bit of frustration boiling over from the industry. So I am wondering to what degree you would describe working in cybersecurity as a stressful or frustrating experience.
It's maybe I gave the wrong impression there. I'm basically excited about it. Yeah, it really is what you make it. I've been extremely lucky in being, for once, in the right place at the right time. It's something where you constantly learn. It is probably what you make it. So the people who probably end up kind of getting really frustrated and shouting at people like I'm doing now are people, all I can say is the advice that I have consistently ignored since I used to work at a firm called Ferranti Computer Systems. Most of the people in this room are probably too young to have even heard of Ferranti Computer Systems. But even since I started that in shock horror 1985, I've always been told at my appraisals that the one thing that I am very bad at doing is saying no. So that every time a new thing comes up, I want to learn about it and I go out and do it. And I just want the world to be a better place. And that's why I might sound frustrated and cross. But it's part of the joy. It's part of the joy because it's actually a job that you can go out and do and actually believe in and get to the level that you want to. You don't have to kind of work 25 hours a day and 8 days a week like I do.
I think it can be frustrating at times, but the thing is that it is such an interesting area that it's challenging more than frustrating, and you have the opportunity to make a difference, which is lovely as well, and that it's not static. In terms of the fact that it's changing, it is changing a lot, but you always come back to your sort of first principles of, what you're trying to protect and the sort of things that you can do to do it. So don't see it as frustrating. I think actually we're maturing. I think that over a period of time, we're ending up with far more educated end users. When I first started with it, you could barely use the word computer, but now you hear people talking about encryption on Radio 4 in the morning. So our user base is getting more sophisticated, and we have to educate the users because we've got such a skill shortage. We need to make everybody into a bit of a security champion, but you won't be bored.
Yeah, just to follow on from the frustration, it's only frustration if you care about it. Otherwise, it's just something else that goes on, and you can be as ambivalent as you like to it. And I think that's kind of a common theme throughout the panel. I think it's fair to say, we're in jobs, we do the jobs that we do because we care about it. There's frustration along the way because you have the perception that it could be better, or it could be different, or why don't we do this, or why don't we do that? I'd argue if you didn't feel that, then why are you in the role? Why are you working in the industry? So actually, I see it as a very healthy thing because it's the drive to do something better.
So I spent 20 years jumping out of planes, skiing down mountains, running around deserts, doing intelligence, sexy Gucci stuff. When I left the military, it was like, oh, what are you going to do next? It's like going to be really boring. Well, it hasn't been. It really hasn't. I've been consulting with KPMG now for 4 years. Time has flown by. I've had loads of variety. Yes, lots of challenges, lots of long hours. But essentially, really enjoyable work. Every day is different. Every client is going to be different. You see, the sort of overlaps and the trends forming after a while. But essentially, it's a really good industry to be in if you like to be challenged and stressed and evolve yourself. And I do a lot of recruitment. And when I'm in an interview, I'm looking for people who've got mental agility because I know they're going to need it. And if they're stressed and crying at the end of the interview, they're probably not for us. So eyes wide open. You can still have a backroom job in cyber, or you can put yourself right out the front and start leading the thinking and the delivery. So yeah, great career. I recommend it to my child, except he's not as clever as his, and he just ends up playing shoot-ups instead of doing clever stuff with coding.
I'll tell my kids that. Thank you. You're right. It can be frustrating and it can be stressful. So can working at McDonald's. So can we working in any job at all. It can be frustrating when you've got a deadline looming and you've got to hand a dissertation in. Life is stressful and life goes on. What I would say is in this industry, I am exceptionally frustrated by this industry. I want it to move faster and I want it to be better. And I care. I really care. Because at some point, someone is going to try and attack my kids. And as a dad, boy, you don't want to be the other side of that conversation. And it does. And it scares me. And that scare becomes a frustration. It becomes a stress to me. But I care. And I care to make this industry better, which is why I do what I do for a job. I have put more hours than you can shake a stick at in this. And I think every single person in this panel has yet to have a day where they haven't had a 48-hour day just to get something done on time because we care. I have known people, though, who have ditched out this industry because of the stress. And the stress has become because they've been pen testing straight, they've done 120% utilisation, and their frustrations became too much because they couldn't beat the bad guy, they couldn't find the vulnerability, and they couldn't. And actually, what had happened for them was they hadn't progressed themselves. This industry is moving so fast. If you are not allowing yourself the time to learn, you will get frustrated by it. You will sit there going, I have no idea what to do with this. And that becomes a problem in your career. And that will happen in any job you do. Any job at all you choose. So yeah, I am frustrated. I am frustrated in the industry. I am stressed about this industry because I am involved in this industry. You will be a part of that at some point, I hope. But I hope that you make a difference so that the stress reduces. And I hope that that frustration reduces. We'll never, ever sit there going, everyone's got a password that's 27 digits long. Brilliant. We will never get to that point because there's a new user. And I think we have to encourage that industry to move with that and learn with that. I hope that's kind of answered your question because obviously stress and frustration can be a big, big problem. We have seen people who have committed suicide in the industry because of stress. And that's happened in the US with a couple of people. And I absolutely, completely and utterly feel for those people who have taken their stress to that level. That was my phone. But it doesn't mean that you can't do this job. It doesn't mean that you can't be in this industry. What it means is that you've got to learn where your limits are, educate yourself past those limits and stretch yourself.
I think we started 5 minutes late, so since I've got the chair and the mic, I'm going to let us run. I'm going to finish 5 minutes late as well. So at least one more question.
Just wondering in the market at the minute, are there any products or services that are coming out of that taking interest?
Right, advertising. Products, which have taken an interest?
So we don't do products. Yeah, we don't do products, but what I can say is what's hot in the sector at the moment. GDPR. IAM, Identity Access Management, particularly around PAM. Third-party security and audits. Assurance against clouds. What else? We're selling lots of maturity assessments and strategy. Where are we now? Where do we need to be? What's it look like in the middle? Improve us. And pen testing always.
Pen testing for sure. It's definitely, I mean, it will never go away. Everyone needs it. Compliance is starting to rely on it. But what I'm seeing is it's also becoming a blended mix with other stuff. So, you're finding you do pen testing, but also you'll have instant response, consultancy, and a whole other services. It's not just no longer, can you pen test this one thing? It's the whole other bit that dovetails into it. Colin Gillingham was up here earlier at NCC. You look at their portfolio of what they're able to produce. Look at KPMG, look at UK Cloud, look at what's out there. You'll see that actually the breadth of what's out there in the market space is huge, and businesses are starting to ask for more services, not just one. It's becoming a much bigger ask.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from our point of view, I'd kind of echo all of those. There's not a single magical tool that we go, oh, I want this. Please, Mr. CEO, can I have some budget because I'm going to buy this and this is going to fix all of our problems for us. It's much more about the integration of those tools, how we have an overall security, policy, alignment, process. It's not one thing that looks at all of our devices and ensures that they have the appropriate levels of security on them and we've not got any risks and no vulnerabilities. There's certain things that we have to do to get tick boxes for compliance. You can imagine we serve the public sector. You can imagine the kind of data that we hold and how conscious we need to be about the security over it. So for me, it's much more about how products work together and their wider applications than it is there's no silver bullet for me. Certainly not at the moment.
Well, that might sound a little bit cliched, but when it comes to tools and products and clever stuff, but I think what Kat has highlighted is that it's never ever one thing. So I'll just give you a general category of more or less just about everything the Israelis do. I hate them. They do such super stuff, and it's all this stuff that we wish we'd done them first. But also in terms of going, okay, dare I actually reawaken the DLT issue and blockchain and the like again? But actually, there's a firm called Ellipsis. I think it's called Ellipsis, who are doing some really cool stuff in actually showing some really bad people that what they are doing online isn't quite as untraceable as they would like to think.
I think when you're talking about products, be careful, because products can only be as good as the people that are actually using them, and that you can end up with something that's giving you so many alerts that you actually don't see the serious stuff, basically. In terms of skills, I think that, yes, there's a lot of flavours in vogue at the moment. Supplier management is massive, because it's so hard to be able to manage the people that are downsourced from your immediate suppliers, because I know when I was doing audits, you'd end up with sort of like the main supplier, then they'd subcontract out to somebody else. And I think my worst one was a shed. Basically, where it was downsoursed out into a shed. Nice shed, but it was still a shed. And so things sort of change and things sort of stay the same. I think the other thing is that because there is so much that we need to protect now, if you're looking for something for your particular skill set, there are going to be organisations out there that can help you, because a lot of the organisations now can't do everything in-house, not that we probably ever could. So you're seeing a lot of people buying in specific services like pen testing when they need it, but also to a certain extent outsourcing certain areas of their security, not all of it because you can't outsource it completely, but certain areas of their security to somebody else to manage, and then they're looking at what they need to have as core skills in-house. So there's a plethora of it, but beware of products being silver bullets, as Kat said.
Right, well, I suppose that brings us to time, and I ought to do as I'm told for once, and thank very much the panel, and I hope you will show appreciation of the panel as well in a few seconds. I hope it maybe has broken down some of the barriers, some of the myths. The panel, and I think most of the people on the programme are readily available online, LinkedIn and all of that kind of stuff. And I suppose if you can't find them online, then that actually might question your cybersecurity skills. I don't think we've got any stereotypes around here, which is great. Never have quite understood the stereotype of the hacker. I thought rather than wearing a hoodie, they should be wearing a shell suit. Okay, never mind. Thank you very much, and please thank the panel.
Nearing 15, yeah. 15. Nearing 15, scarily so, yeah.
And what Kat's going to be talking about is her experience as a woman in technology. And we haven't got enough women in technology.
Absolutely.
We're going to encourage more of us to get involved.
So do I, so do I. Cool, fabulous, thank you. Hi, so a few of you who are around for the panel discussion have kind of had a brief intro of me and a brief intro of UK Cloud, so hopefully this won't be a revisit too much. But yeah, so basic history, I've been in tech all of my working career essentially, which is now scarily getting up to 15-ish years or so. Like I said, I've worked in big corporate organisations, I've worked in the likes of Virgin Media, Sky, and I've worked in tiny little startups as well. UK Cloud is kind of somewhere in between. We're about 200 employees at the moment. We've been trading for 7 years or so, although only 5 of those really actively. We're forecast to grow along with the rest of the industry, and we're expecting to be about 3 times the size shortly. So, a little bit about us and what we do. As I've mentioned before, we work kind of in the public sector. We talk about multi-cloud. I'll come on to talk about that a little bit more. Some of our values. So it's about being completely open. You're never locked in. We look at kind of collaboration within communities, as much of that inside of our business as outside of it. So talking about clouds, maybe not just for an organisation, but for an industry. So we launched UK Cloud Health last year. That's about making a health kind of cloud. So imagine how powerful it is if your GP can send your data to Bupa when you need a referral on the same system without the kind of technical complications that we kind of have. These are kind of some of our use cases. And also about the last point, kind of accelerating your safe journey to the cloud. That's really about customer education, and you'll find with certainty, whatever role that you move into, a huge part of that is going to be customer education. They've kind of heard something, or they've got a vague idea about what they want to do, but they don't really know how. We do a lot of that with customers, a lot of education, a lot of kind of clearing out the noise and understanding what's really important to them, and helping them to understand what they need rather than just hitting on a buzzword. So this is us. It's not easily displayed so much there. So you'll recognise some of the technologies and some of the stuff that kind of underpins us. We're as much, I guess, a kind of like Oracle VMware kind of organisation as we are an open source kind of organisation. So in the public sector, quite a lot of their data and quite a lot of their infrastructure, for example, will run on Oracle workloads. It's a huge leap to get a public sector organisation with an Oracle workload over to a completely open source solution. That's not going to happen. So we talk about both modernisation and transformation. So, why hold your Oracle solution on a data centre that's right there next to your hospital that actually, well, if you got rid of that, you could put beds in that space. It's literally that practical application. If you got rid of your data centre on site, you brought your workloads over to us, we host them in the cloud for you, you have freed up real estate that really actually means you can fit, more patients in your hospital, you can serve more people better. There's those kind of practical implications. We've also got some customers who are coming to us who are a bit more in the transformative space. Open source isn't such a scary kind of word or a scary kind of concept to them. The organisations that we support are very concerned about the security of their data. Some of those organisations are still in the place where, well, if my data isn't in my data centre, with my people that I can see physically over there, then it's not safe. I just don't trust you. I'm not interested. You know, go talk to someone else. Not bothered. So as you can imagine, the customer education piece is really, really key on that. You know, cloud is safe. Dare I say it's safer from us than it is with AWS, but that's the space that we play in. So we keep all of our data onshore. That's kind of our USP in the marketplace. So any data that companies hold with UK Cloud only stays within the UK. It means that it's subject to UK rules and UK security. We're not storing backups or anything else elsewhere, outside of our own borders. So that's our place in the market. So a little bit more interestingly, women in STEM. So UK Cloud, we're dedicated to diversity in the workplace. We actually have quite a few women in our organisation. Very highly skilled women as well, in a whole variety of roles. So, I'm in a kind of head of project space. We have taken on 2 undergraduates in our undergraduate placement this year, who are women as well. One of them's, well, actually both of them really are kind of out and out kind of coders, what I call proper techs. Not me, who's kind of pseudo tech, just work in the tech industry, know a little bit about this, know a little bit about that. Proper techs here. So we're continuing to grow. We've got ongoing opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be 3 times the size of the organisation as we currently are. Those opportunities are only going to continue to grow. So, have a chat to us about our undergraduate placements. Have a chat to us about, coming to join us after you've finished your studying. Plenty of opportunity. I talked a bit about, not just being for a techie. We've launched Women in STEM. Go have a look at our website and have a read of those profiles. Like I said, there's a whole scale of roles that are out there, and we support women in all sorts of roles. So, traditionally, where would you find women in a tech organisation? Anyone? Where would you expect women in tech to be? Right, they're HR or marketing, right? That's where women exist if they're in a tech organisation. All right, yeah, we do have women in our marketing department. We do have women in our HR department. That's not the only place that we have women, okay? What else are we talking about? So we've doubled size in 2 years. We're 3 times bigger. Actually, 15% of our workforce is female. That's not bad going when there's 200 of you. That's not bad going at all. It's relatively representative of the market. The market kind of varies between 15 to kind of 22%. So we're kind of playing in the right space, but there's more work to be done. So we launched our early careers page towards the end of last year. Go and have a look at that. That'll touch in more detail on the things that I've kind of briefly mentioned today. So really happy to be here with Cybersecurity Challenge to encourage more people into STEM as well. So what about the market itself? Stats speak for themselves. The opportunity is huge. I can't overestimate the opportunity that is out there for you. You are in a prime place to make the most of those opportunities. The digital sector, by 2025, really not that far away, will contribute 200 billion to the UK economy. That's enormous. I want in on that. You should want in on that. Come on, it's where your skill set's going to be. The opportunity is great. So we need 1 million more tech workers by 2020. I'm going to be one of them. I'm not going to be a new one. I'm just intending to hang around. You're the new ones. But just 17% are female. So why are we ignoring half the market? Are we ignoring half the market? Is something else going on? I'm here to encourage more people to join the industry as a whole. I'm not, we just need more women in tech. We need more people in tech. Actually, if we're ignoring 50% of that potential base, then I feel like we've got a problem. So I'm very happy to, promote in this space, but, I'm promoting all the way across the board. This one really scared me. Only 1 in 10 currently doing computer studies at A-level. I'm going to guess most of you did computer studies at A-level. Oh, you snuck it without computer studies on a cybersecurity course, did you? Oh, fair play. Oh, fair play for that one. But the point is, it's not just talking to individuals like you, where you've already taken that step onto that path. UK Cloud also do a lot of work in schools and with kind of people on a more early careers path. Just to talk about the jobs that are available and the things that are out there. So personally, I've got a bit of vested interest in this one. We've got 4 kids between us. 3 of them are girls. They are 8, 10, and 12. They have no concept whatsoever that an industry might be more challenging to get into just because they're a woman. No concept whatsoever. And I want that to be true for them. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm very personally invested in it as well. So, how did we end up here? How did we end up just at 17% of women being tech? There's a few things. There's the environmental things. Flat out discrimination. I'd kind of like to think this has gone away by now. Simply a man is better than a woman? Nah, rubbish, come on. That's nonsense right now, surely. Stereotyping. Now this one I still see and I still think is present in the market. It's just not what girls do. And the role models and the mentoring. This is perhaps the biggest one for me. So when I joined, tech industry 15 years ago, there weren't very many people to look up to. There certainly weren't very many people I could practically look up to, any kind of females who were senior in the organisation, who I could go and have a conversation with, I'm kind of interested, I need your help, what were the challenges that you had, those kind of things. That didn't exist, I would hope, the world is changing. It's about individuals that are kind of closer to you, so people in organisations, your peers. I think your peers is really important, learning from people and being challenged by people alongside you, as well as those you perceive as above you or more senior than you. And there's also some wider role models as well. I've got a few quotes later in the presentation from, I think, some of the more predictable role models, but I'm sure you'll tell me. So, psychological. In theory, these ones aren't going to change because they're psychological, right? It's the same, we're the same human beings as we have been for a while. I think the more interesting point with these is having an awareness of them and maybe think, oh, is this why I think that? Female interest. Men prefer working with things and women prefer working with people. I really don't like this one because I'm kind of like, no, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I don't, just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I'm going to be more interested in this than that. That's why I put that quote where. You take that as it is. It is an study, and it holds that opinion, or they were the findings from it. It comes back to the roles in tech. So, I'm definitely a more people person than I am a things kind of person. Whether that's because I'm a woman or not, kind of don't care. That's what I enjoy, and that's what I'm going to do, which is so important. Why, a project management style role, which is kind of what I have. They basically get people together and, we're going to deliver something, and, I support that team, to deliver that. And I, remove the challenges along the way and coach them and encourage them and, and all of those kind of things. That's definitely more people thing than a thing. So the roles are there. Lack of confidence. So perception that you're just not really quite as good and you're only kind of having to play at it and, oh, well, just an awareness of that perception. You are as good as the next person. If you're not as good as the next person, well, go learn, graft, work a bit harder, be as good, be better. Stereotype threat. Oh, well, hang on. If I'm really crappy at coding, then that's just going to reaffirm that all women shouldn't do coding because they're all rubbish and it's my fault and all of that kind of thing. As daft as it sounds, it is a real issue. I am worried about confirming the stereotypes about women in STEM. So, all right, that's the problem. All right, so what are we going to do about it? So, as an employer, UK Cloud has quite a few responsibilities in this space. Just about recruitment, we look at the job adverts that we put out there. There's certain language that can be used in job adverts that lends itself to getting more male candidates applying than it does to get female candidates applying. I'm trying to think of the example that I saw earlier. It was something like dominate. So the word dominate was used in a job spec about it was describing the company, and it was saying we are dominant in our industry. Typically, those kind of words appeal much more to a male mindset than they do to a female mindset. So we're very careful about the wording that we use in our job adverts to make sure we don't introduce that gender bias. We also look about how we recruit, where we recruit from, who we actually look to put on our kind of career site, for example. I don't want to go to, how likely am I to apply for a job where everyone on the career site is a white male in their 50s? It's not very representative. Don't really see myself in that place very easily. We also are careful about our interview process as well. So we make sure that where appropriate, there is a female that is doing that role or is kind of more senior to that role that will sit on that interview process as well. We actually ask, all of our interview candidates generally, when they come into a face-to-face interview, we'll also take them around the office as well. You can see the environment they work in, you can get an appreciation of the different types of individuals that are in that environment. It's not just about gender, it's also about age, that kind of thing. So I touched on that point, showing the environment that you could be working in. The variety of roles in tech. Anyone know what a product owner is? Ever heard of product owner? Kind of vaguely? Yeah, oh, well done, Colin, thanks. I was surprised. Any product undergraduate out there? Yeah, well done, Tom, thanks for that. So, product owner. What the hell? That didn't exist in my world. That didn't exist in my world when I was in a career. So, that kind of role, for example. So, product owners look after the life of a product that a company sells. So, it can be things as being a very technical product owner. So, say you are looking after perhaps our OpenStack instance, and you might be pushing forward, some of the technical features that we want to deploy and deliver in there. You might be in a software space where actually you're talking more about, customer journeys and UX and things like that. The point of pulling that out as an example is that there's so many roles that are out there, you will find your place, definitely. Other one, employee support. So, there's the practical things that you think about and go, oh, if they got a good maternity leave policy, what about my childcare vouchers and stuff like that, okay? Way less, worry about that in 15 years' time. It's going to matter maybe a little bit more then. But, there's also the very kind of practical things outside of that. Whether you're a mum, you're a dad, you're a girl, whatever, it's important to have that kind of employee support and understand the individuals that are in your organisation and how they need to be supported. This is the bit that I really care about, though. It's about a community of support. So, how do you get more women in tech? We just make it normal. Why should it be anything other than trying to get more men in tech? The industry is open. There's events like this. Go online. Type in women in tech. You will see the events across the country. It is out there. The opportunities are out there for the taking. Look at meetups. You don't have to be in a job, and you don't have to be 30 plus years old to go to meetups. Go, learn, network, meet people. It's out there for you. Talk about groups. So specific groups online, like STEMettes kind of springs to mind. Don't know if anyone's kind of come across these guys. No? Okay. Again, Google search, you'll hit hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. There's lots up in Manchester, actually. Manchester is definitely one of the kind of growing tech hubs. So, have a look. It's out there. Those resources are available. And then role models and peers. So, again here, there's not a huge amount that are really readily accessible. It's improved, but there's quite a long way to go. I would argue, if I connected on LinkedIn with, say, Sheryl Sandberg, CEO of Google, is she going to give me a job? Does it make me more likely to get a job at Google? No, probably not. It's more useful to have role models and mentors that are actually useful to you and peers. So, look at the other levels. Look at the companies that you might want to go and work for. So, UK Cloud is based down in Farnborough in Hampshire. You might go, oh, I'm never travelling there. I'm kind of up north. That's miles away. It's, it's not kind of my bag. But, what stops you having a chat to us to understand the industry a little bit better? We know who our competitors are. And we know where they are in the country. We know the kind of things that they do. I certainly have no harm in helping you make connections into those companies. Again, the same thing. The opportunity is out there. So, some of the quotes. This is from Denise, who actually works in UK Cloud. She's part of our automation and monitoring and engineering department. They rebranded themselves recently. They were going for automation, reliability, and service engineering, which would have been a much better acronym for me. There's those that are going to get it. There we go. There it happens. So, Denise is fantastic. Now, she is what I would call, and I think she would take, a complete geek. She's way more like you guys in terms of technical capability, understanding, drivers, than I am. And I think, it's fair to say, she's right in what she says. It's pretty hard to tell, but she's glad she's somewhere that is looking at improving and is looking at changing things. So the quotes that I think you probably more expected me to show. So, YouTube CEO. If you don't participate, you kind of don't have much say over the outcome. I don't not want to have say over the outcome. You know, the numbers that I showed earlier, the industry is growing. It's going to be enormous. We need people in the sector. You know, come join in. No more nurses, no more teachers. Come work in tech instead. It's not quite what is meant. You know, the point here, it's not that hard. A lot of the barriers that you put up to entering that market are barriers that you're putting up. You know, think back on the psychological things that you put up. A lot of those is about having the awareness of them and helping your mind to think, you know, to think in a different way. Okay. Women are better with people than they are with things. I'm a bit of I don't play by the rules kind of person. So immediately I'm like, oh, whatever, don't really care. I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. Okay, you know, you need a bit of that to, you know, to get through. But it really isn't that hard. This one is probably my favourite of the bunch. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a bloke or a woman. I don't care. I will always recruit who is best for that job. All I want to say is the opportunity is out there. It's on you for the taking. You know, don't expect it to land in your lap. You know, there are very few people that get that Willy Wonka golden ticket. That's the perfect job. It's come at the perfect time. It's exactly what I'm going to do. I know exactly what I'm going to do. That very rarely happens. So try it. Take the opportunities. You know, do as much as you can from it. So I started out too long ago now, basically as a sales admin. I went to work for what was Telewest, which probably is not a familiar company name to any of you. It's what eventually became Virgin Media. Virgin Media took on loads of kind of telecom companies. Why did I go there? Basically, I was going to go and work in a pub. Mum said, "You're not really going to have much of a career if you just go and work in a pub. Why don't you go and try and get into somewhere a bit bigger, somewhere where there's maybe some more opportunities, go to something like that." I'm really glad she said that to me because, you know, I started there at Telewest and I grafted. I had a really crappy job. God, it was boring. So sales orders used to come in on a piece of paper and I used to sit and type them. No kind of scanning, no kind of, you know, any of this kind of sexy stuff. I literally used to look at a piece of paper, type it out, send it off somewhere else. Did that for a while. Moved roles within that company. I think something like 12 times in 8 years. Didn't know what I wanted to do. So when an opportunity came up to go and try and do something else, that's what I did. Then when that kind of didn't really hit the spot, then I moved on elsewhere. You know, following that, I'd been there for quite a long time, 9 years or so. And then still then, I didn't know what to do. So I went contracting for a bit. That's when I got a bit more exposure to kind of different companies, slightly different industries, and got some experience from there. Step further forward from there, you know, I've been at UK Cloud now, coming on for 12, 18 months or so. I want to stay where I am, and I want to stay where I am for quite a long time. The reasons for that, it's a really exciting industry to be in. They're an incredibly supportive employer, and it just feels like the right thing to do right now. So, you know, don't worry if you don't know what you want to do. Go experience it, try it, you know, learn from it and reset. The other thing as a kind of parting word of wisdom, don't look for a job title. So tech are really, really bad at calling the same job different things and expecting different things from the same job. It blows my mind. No one can seem to get it right. And then you might add agile in front of, you know, whatever job title you're going for. Or you might add like delivery at the other end or whatever. So work out what you like doing, you know, be it a specific, you know, skill set, a specific technology or a specific development language, whatever it is. I like doing that and I'm pretty good at doing that. Have a hunt around the market, you know. Don't worry that one of those job titles might be a support engineer. One of them might be an infrastructure architect. One of them might be God only knows what else. So find the things that you like doing, look for those skills, don't look for the titles, is where it would be. So that was me, a kind of whistle-stop tour of women in tech and UK Cloud and all of those kind of things. As you could probably tell, I could go on about any of those subjects for kind of weeks on end. But it's also freezing, and I'm going to keep dancing around like this for a little bit longer. But, so, guys, questions from you? Take anything completely.
planted question. So I don't want to appear as a quote on your presentation.
There's no promises.
As a manager alongside Kat, one of the things I see is that when I have a job description and it says the required skills are 8 things, what I find is the male candidates have 4 of those and they apply. The female candidates apply when they have 7 or 8 of those skills. I don't know if it's a confidence thing or it's a trust thing, but that's what I see. I don't know if it's from a female point of view. Is it different?
So I would agree. I think that typically is what I would see. So I mean, the word of that is be bold. You say, you've got 80% of the role and you can grow into the 20%. I flipped that. I mean, that was a hell of an experience taking that job. But I would say I was relatively successful in it. Hedge your bets a bit more. Go 60-40 if you're going bold. But I absolutely totally agree. And it's the same for everything. I defy anyone. I think maybe there's that one perfect candidate out there. We haven't got Lewis with us, but that actually hits all of those. As a recruiter, there are things that I think I want, and then I'll meet a candidate who maybe has the other things that were on that job spec that weren't necessarily the things that I thought I definitely wanted. But by their personality, by their style, by the way that they've come across in the interview, by actually looking at their experience, I've actually gone, hang on, you're completely the right fit for me. One that kind of threw me lately. So the 2 most recent recruits that I've made in my team are, and they'll take it in the right way, they are balding 50-year-old white men. I don't expect to recruit them, but actually looking at the team that I've got, the blend that I need, the skills that I'm looking for, they were the right people to come into that team, and they're incredibly successful. I have women in my team as well. They're incredibly successful. Some of the actually most highly valued individuals in the organisation. So yeah, as Colin said, don't let that list that starts at a job description put you off. Anyone else with any other questions?
I have a question. I just wanted to add on what you said. Personally, when I find something like that, so let's say, I'm liking this, the first thing I think of is I have to study. So I may end up just getting on an online course, trying to make up for things I think I don't know yet. So it's always trying to be better. If I don't know that, I have to know it. If I still haven't come across that technology, I try to be better at that. Either reading about this or reading about that. And at the same time, you're simply missing out opportunities because you want to be better. But it's like you see something and you get it. It should be like that.
Absolutely.
Either I have this or the job is not mine. So I never wonder if having 2 out of 8 or 4 out of 8 will grant me the opportunity to get into a job. And just simply think, well, it's not what I want.
I think, you come into the right organisation, that organisation is willing to grow with you. Particularly UK Cloud, a younger organisation, we've got lots of growth opportunities. We kind of don't know what we need as well. And I think it's fair to say there's some individuals that we've recruited that have a bit of actually the fun stuff that I do at home in, between 11 a.m. and 1 a.m. because those are the kind of cool hours that I work, is this, and and I want to do more of this. I'm kind of, actually, that's kind of quite interesting to us because that ties into this, and actually maybe we need to grow a bit more in this space. I think particularly in security. So we've got some incredibly intelligent, capable, interested, driven people in the organisation. But their fun stuff being outside and being able to bring that back in. Don't forget that's a skill that you have. You're not just the person that exists between 9 and 5. You're the person that exists all hours of the day in all different areas and with all different capabilities. Bring that with you and take that into you at work. It'll work in the right company. You'll find companies where maybe that's just not the right place for you. If so, accept it, move on. There's plenty out there. Cool. Anyone for anything else? No? Oh, good. Fabulous. Well, look, thank you. You can find me on LinkedIn, come hassle me, do whatever, anytime.
You talked a lot of sense there, an absolute lot of sense. And I think that every woman in this room has got to go away and say, I don't need to be 110% of everything, because if you are 110% fit for a job, you'll probably want to move on in about a year's time. You need to give yourself something to strive for. So take that thought and run with it, and don't create your own glass ceilings, because all you need is a little hammer. You just bash your way through
Done.
it. Definitely.
Done. Or a well-placed heel, it depends
Or
on your
well-
fantasy.
To this event today to really have a look to see what industry is doing about the cyber skill shortage. Obviously, it's really good to see the amount of students who are here today looking for the first step into a cyber security career. Energis as a company, we are really looking at the skill shortage in cybersecurity within the nuclear industry. I came down here today to just really get a grasp to see what others are doing about the skill shortage. Yeah, I think that the panel was really helpful. It was good to obviously see from so many different industry perspectives, from obviously the guys at Cyber Challenge to obviously people who are consultants, obviously the chair of the IISP. It was really good to get a broad overview from all the different angles, really. And some really good questions given across as well. I do have one question that I want to ask them as well before they disappear. So yeah, absolutely, really good.
So today I started off with the Capture the Flag event, which was very interesting. It definitely helped me highlight some of the areas I'm less experienced in and what I should work on. The panelists in general was very helpful. They helped me identify many problems that I had or helped me along with small issues. After the Capture the Flag event, there was a demo on malware detection, which also was very interesting. Since I'm mainly striving to become a malware analyst, so that was very interesting. The Q&A sessions certainly help, and all the people are very approachable. So, yeah. It was very good, very helpful, very informative. I would definitely come again to the event.
Matt, I'm coming here representing the University of Manchester, so my particular experience in cybersecurity is fairly limited. I've only been in the field for about a year, and I segued over from humanities. So my primary endeavour at the minute is to get sort of deep technical researchers and practitioners and the like talking to social scientists and the like, so that we can get a more diverse interdisciplinary discussion going relating to cybersecurity. And that's been borne out a lot in the conversation that we've had, particularly at the start. At the start of the day, there was lots of discussions about how economics and law and business all have relevant insight to provide to the discussion. So it's been of particular interest to me. Well, the panel, I work with Danny Dresner, who was chairing the panel for University of Manchester. It was a very good, disparate collection of opinions representing different sort of business interests. So they all gave their opinions very, very eloquently and very passionately. It's good to sort of help inspire new people to this career to see the enthusiasm that sort of old hands for the career have for it, so that they're not scared off and they don't think it'll be this incredibly daunting experience. From what I've seen of the workshops, I've not participated in any of them yet, but they've all been very well attended, and the reaction from them has been positive. I've spoken to other delegates who have who are in various stages of the career searching process, and they found the workshops to be very, very useful. Likewise, the exhibition stands have also been very useful for them in sort of gaining more of a perspective of where they would like to go next in their career searching process.
Thank you. I'm a recent graduate from Information and Communication Technologies. So I'm here because right now it's about getting to know the people, getting to know the industry, and my interest is on this type of events, job events, where many insights are really, thrown to people. And just today has been really, really important for me because I've learned many things related to how to customize my CV, just to get myself as, trying to get myself to what the employer may be looking at. And what else? All the things that I've learned today can be related to what are really the insights of the industry, what they really think this is going to, and what they think as professionals that they need from people like us who's just being graduated recently. So it was a pity that they finished, because I wanted to throw to them a question related to what they were talking about, all kind of stuff related to how people can get more protection when they are really using technology. So I wanted to ask about that thing about getting control of their security, what they can do with their passwords, and in general all that has to do with hygiene security. What about changing the paradigm? Instead of being the people who has to care about their security, that companies themselves that develop maybe the software may take care of that protection. That's something that I haven't come up with. It's something that I listened to yesterday from someone working in Airbus. It's very interesting, trying to just get rid of people with the responsibility of protecting themselves and throw that to the professionals. I honestly think that it is important that people have a broad digital education. They can be helped from the company, but I really think that they should also be able to protect themselves. Of this kind of event, I would gladly come again, because I think that every time you get in contact and get in touch with people that are currently working in this industry, can really tell you things that you will learn for sure. They always repeat the same thing, and that is that even if they have 10, 20 years experience, every day they will learn something new. So it's always interesting to come to this kind of events.